Welcome to this Beginner's Guide to Jyotish Masterclass, a sacred journey through the science of light. My name is Dr. Sashina Ramnanan, and I'm truly honored to walk this journey with you. I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, Vedic astrologer, psychic medium, and energy healer. And for the past 15 years, I have helped people around the world awaken their inner truth through ancient Vedic wisdom, metaphysical tools, and soul centered healing practices. This masterclass is more than a course, it's a sacred container, a space where you will not only learn the technical tools of Jyotish, but also begin to see astrology as a living, breathing light that can guide you towards greater self awareness, healing, and alignment with your Dharma. Jyotish is the science of light, but it's not about labeling, predicting, or controlling life. It's about understanding the karmic story your soul chose and learning how to work with those energies consciously. In this training, you'll learn how to read a chart from a spiritual and intuitive lens. We'll explore the grahas or planets, the rashis or signs, and the bhavas or houses, and most importantly, how to weave them together in a meaningful interpretation that honors the complexity and beauty of every soul's journey. I created this masterclass to make Jyotish accessible, empowering, and deeply transformational. You don't need to memorize pages of definitions. You need to learn how to see, how to listen, and how to trust the sacred language of the stars. And I'm here to guide you step by step with the same compassion and clarity I bring to every client and every student I have worked with. So whether you are here to deepen your self-understanding, to support others, or to begin reading charts professionally, know that you are in the right place. You are part of a lineage of light, and I'm so honored to be your teacher on this path. Let's begin. Now, let us get into the heart of this beautiful science, Jyotish. The word itself comes from two beautiful Sanskrit roots, Jyoti, which means light, and Ish or Isha, which means the Lord or the divine intelligence. When we combine them, Jyotish or Jyotisha, sometimes as it's called, becomes the light of the Lord, or more commonly known as the science of light. But this is not just a physical light that we associate with like the sun or the moon. No, it's more symbolic than that. It is the light of wisdom, it's the light of clarity, awareness, and most of all, cosmic order. Jyotish shines into the parts of life that are so unclear or confusing for us. It reveals what lies beneath the surface of our experiences, especially because it's governed by karma, time, and our soul's unique nature. In the Vedic tradition, Jyotish is not just an optional study. It is one of the 6 Vedangas or the limbs of the Vedas. Each Vedanga serves a specific purpose in supporting human life in alignment with the universal truth. Just as Ayurveda supports the health of the body and yoga supports the evolution of the mind and spirit, Jyotish supports our relationship with time, destiny, and cosmic intelligence. It teaches us that we are not isolated beings, wandering aimlessly in life, but that we are part of a greater rhythm, a cosmic order. Jyotish allows us to see when to act, when to wait, and why certain experiences are arising. It's not about predicting rigid outcomes. Rather, it is a tool for realigning with your divine will. Okay? It shows us how to live more consciously by turning into the right moment, what we call kala or divine time. It's important to make this distinction. Jyotish is not fortune telling. It's not about labeling people or limiting what is possible. It's not here to create fear. It's here to reveal, to illuminate, and most of all, to guide. Jyotish offers soul-level insight. It helps us to recognize our inherent strengths, our karmic patterns, our emotional tendencies, and even ancestral imprints. The ultimate goal of Jyotish is not to control life, but to cooperate with it. When used wisely, it becomes a mirror of your soul's agreements. It's kind of like a spiritual GPS. Just like the sun dispels the darkness of the night, Jyotish dispels the inner darkness of confusion, fear, and our resistance. It helps us to see where we are going and where we are meant to travel on that path. In ancient times, Jyotish wasn't studied casually or just for entertainment. It was treated as a sacred responsibility, and those who practiced it were deeply respected and trained in dharmic ethics. Kings consulted with astrologers not only for battle or for wealth, but to ensure that their decisions were in harmony with the cosmic order. Healers timed treatments and rituals based on planetary alignments. Families used it to arrange marriages and supported lineage harmony and also karmic compatibility. The entire society respected Jyotish as a tool of guidance, not prediction. Even today, this wisdom is incredibly relevant. It helps us to understand why certain emotional patterns repeat, why some relationships challenge us, and while others heal us, and what lessons we are being asked to embrace. When we begin to see our lives reflected in the stars, not as random accidents, but as karmic invitations, we soften a bit. We begin to trust life again. And with that trust comes peace, grace, and the willingness to grow with life rather than to struggle against it. That is the real gift of Jyotish. It doesn't tell you what you must be. It reminds you of who you already are, beneath the conditioning, beneath the confusion, and beneath the fear. It lights the path, not with certainty, but with wisdom. Not with control, but with conscious choice. And in doing so, it reawakens your connection to the divine rhythm that has always been guiding you. At its core, Jyotish is a sacred mirror. It reflects not just our personality, but the deeper layers of our being. Layers we often cannot see clearly because we are shaped by the past karma, ancestral memory, subconscious tendencies, and our soul contracts. It helps us understand why we think and feel the way that we do, why we are drawn to certain types of people, why we have reoccurring emotional or health patterns. The birth chart is not a verdict. It is a symbolic map of energy, showing us where we are going, where we are vulnerable, and where the soul is trying to evolve. In this way, Jyotish becomes a tool for self-inquiry and inner alignment. When we understand ourselves more clearly, we stop fighting our nature and start working with it. This leads to a deeper sense of peace, self-acceptance, and wholeness. Another central purpose of Jyotish is to help us understand timing. Life doesn't happen in one straight line. It moves in waves, expansion and contraction, clarity and confusion, action and rest. These are not random. They are part of the soul's natural unfolding. Jyotish uses tools like dashas, which are our planetary periods, and transits to help decode these cycles. When is a good time to launch a business? When is a good time to heal, or when will we heal, or should we pull back? When is the relationship ready to move forward, or maybe let go? This kind of insight doesn't make life predictable. It makes life navigatable. It gives us the wisdom to ride the wave of karma rather than getting caught in it. It protects us from unnecessary struggle because we begin to work with the current of life, not against it. We begin to understand that even delays, losses, or breakdowns may be perfectly timed to bring about something greater. Decision making is another area where Jyotish becomes invaluable. Whether it's a career move, a relocation, a health decision, or even choosing the right time to conceive or to get married, Jyotish shines the light on karmic and energetic layers behind our choices. It doesn't replace our free will, but it does provide clarity on which path might be the right one for us, which one is based on our past karmas and current planetary influences. It allows us to move forward with confidence, even when the outcome is uncertain, because we are aligned with the timing and the purpose. Over time, this leads to more balanced and conscious living. We stop making reactive decisions and we start making intentional ones, rooted in awareness, not confusion, not fear. And finally, Jyotish is deeply connected to healing, not just physical healing, but emotional and spiritual healing as well. It helps us to recognize the deeper causes of suffering, many of which begin long before a symptom appears. It can reveal ancestral karma, past life wounds, energetic imbalances, and emotional triggers. More importantly, it gives us remedies, tools like mantras, gemstones, rituals, charity, and lifestyle alignment, which can help us harmonize these energies. These remedies aren't about superstition, they're about resonance. They shift the vibration of the subtle body, allowing healing to take place from inside out. And when used with humility and with compassion, Jyotish becomes not just a diagnostic system, but a spiritual medicine. And as this slide beautifully says, Jyotish is the torch that lights up your karmic path, not to burn you, but to guide you. It lights the way back to yourself and to divine order that has always been within you. One of the first things many people notice when they look at their Vedic chart is their sun sign or the other planets, which might fall in different zodiac signs than what they always believed. This often leads to confusion or even resistance at first, especially for those familiar with Western astrology. And so, one of the most common questions becomes, why is my sun sign different in Vedic astrology? So the answer lies in how each system defines the zodiac, and more specifically, how each relates to the position of the stars in the sky versus the rhythms of the Earth's seasons. Western astrology uses what is known as the tropical zodiac. This system is tied to the solar calendar and the Earth's relationship to the sun. It begins the zodiac at 0 degrees Aries each year on the spring equinox, which is when the day and night are equal in length. So in Western astrology, the signs remain fixed in relation to the seasons, regardless of the actual movement of the stars and the constellations. This model is elegant in its own way. It captures the seasonal cycle of human development, and it has symbolic significance rooted in the Earth's inner rhythms. Vedic astrology or Jyotish takes a different approach. It uses the sidereal zodiac, which is anchored in the actual positions of the stars and constellations in the sky, as they are right now. Over thousands of years, the Earth has been slowly wobbling on its axis, the natural astronomical phenomena called the precession of the equinoxes. Because of this shift, the constellations have moved gradually away from the points used in the tropical system. This gap between the two systems is known as the Ayanamsha, and the difference is about 23 to 24 degrees. This means if your sun is at 15 degrees Taurus in the Western chart, it might be at 22 degrees Aries in the Vedic chart. The planets haven't moved. You're just looking at them through a truer lens of the sky-based measurement. Now, this difference isn't just technical. It has deep philosophical meaning. In Jyotish, we are not just interpreting symbolic archetypes. We are studying the actual positions of the grahas, what we call planets in the sky, to understand their energetic influence over karma, timing, and the soul's evolution. Jyotish is a karmic science, and to function accurately, it must reflect the true celestial mechanics. That is why the sidereal zodiac is preferred, because it aligns with our inner journey and the external universe in real time. It becomes less about identity or personality and more about the soul's purpose, our karmic lessons, and the timing of events. This shift in perspective from personality to purpose is what makes Vedic astrology so spiritually profound. So in Jyotish, we say, it's not enough to align with how things appear. We must align with how they truly are. The sidereal zodiac helps us to do just that. It brings us into harmony with the actual cosmos, not just the seasonal rhythm. And as this slide beautifully says, Jyotish aligns with the stars as they are, not just how they appear from seasonal shifts. When we understand this, we stop asking which system is better, and we start asking, what am I trying to understand? My outer identity or my inner journey? For the soul's path, for karma and dharma, and for working with the divine time, the sidereal system offers extraordinary precision. And it's this precision that gives Jyotish its power, not just to describe your life, but to illuminate the deeper meaning of your life. At the heart of Jyotish lies a profound and timeless spiritual philosophy built on three essential pillars: karma, dharma, and kala. These are not merely abstract or philosophical concepts. They are energetic forces that shape the soul's journey across lifetimes. To truly understand Jyotish and to benefit from its guidance, we must first understand how these three forces interact with each other and then with us. Let's begin with karma. Karma means action, but in a deeper sense, it refers to the consequences of action, both immediate and delayed. Every thought that we think, every word that we speak, and every decision makes a ripple. This ripple doesn't disappear. It becomes energy stored in the subtle body, forming what we call karmic impressions or samskaras. These impressions over time manifest as life experiences. The joy, the pain, the love, loss, success, failure, none of it is random. What we experience today is often a result of past actions or patterns, waiting for the right time to mature and to bear our fruit. Jyotish gives us the tools to read these patterns. It reveals not just what karma is playing out, but where it's rooted and how we can rise above it through self-awareness and conscious choices. The second pillar is what we call dharma. It's often misunderstood as merely duty. But in the Vedic context, dharma means so much more. It is your soul's sacred calling, the unique path that you are meant to walk in this lifetime. It's the divine intelligence that guides your potential, your purpose, and your contribution to this world. Each soul is born with a specific dharma, and no two are the same. What is right for one may be completely wrong for another. Through the birth chart, Jyotish uncovers the blueprint of your dharma. It shows your natural strengths, your life's themes, your responsibilities, and the areas of growth. When we align with our dharma, we feel the flow, fulfillment, and inner peace, because we are no longer swimming upstream against our soul's own plan. And then we have Kala, which is perhaps the most subtle and mystical of the three. Kala means time, but it's not just clock time. Kala refers to the divine time, to the sacred rhythm of the universe. In Jyotish, time is not mechanical. It's alive, it's intelligent, and it's deeply karmic. Every event in your life, every encounter, every opportunity or challenge unfolds at a precise moment for a reason. That's why timing is so crucial in Jyotish. The system of planetary periods known as dashas, which I mentioned before, reveals which karmas are ripening now and which ones are still dormant. Transits, or as they are known in Sanskrit as gocharas, show subtle planetary movements, which are activating different parts of your chart. Jyotish doesn't tell us what might happen. It tells us when it is the most likely to unfold based on your individual karmic timeline. It teaches us that some doors only open when the soul is ready, and that patience is also part of wisdom. When you bring these three principles together, karma, dharma, and kala, a beautiful spiritual framework emerges. You begin to see your life through the lens of understanding instead of judgment. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You stop fighting circumstances and begin to cooperate with your soul's timing. You start recognizing that each phase of life has its purpose, whether it's ease or struggle, expansion or retreat. And as this slide says, when we understand the time, or kala, we walk with dharma with grace. That's the real power of Jyotish. It doesn't make us passive or fatalistic. It helps us to move through life with intention, insight, and most of all, inner peace. It is a tool of remembrance, a way to reconnect with our soul's agreement and to walk forward with clarity. Jyotish is often seen as a spiritual or psychological tool. And yes, it absolutely is. But it's important to recognize that it's also a powerful healing science, particularly when it is used in harmony with Ayurveda. In the classical Ayurvedic system, Jyotish was never seen as something separate or optional. It was an integral part of diagnosis and treatment planning. When we study a person's chart, we are not just analyzing fate. We are uncovering subtle clues about the mind, body, and soul complex. A well-read chart can offer profound insights into why someone may be experiencing repeated physical illnesses, emotional instability, or even resistance to healing. In Ayurvedic consultations, we often use the chart to determine a person's Prakruti, which is their original constitution at birth, as well as their Vikruti, which reflects their current state of imbalance. We also look at the Manas, the mental and emotional patterns, to help us to understand the tendencies of a person's mind. For example, a chart with a strong, well-placed moon, which represents the mind, and it often shows the emotional steadiness of a person, a well-placed moon will show steadiness and nourishment. But a moon that is afflicted or placed in a difficult house may reveal a deeper vulnerability to anxiety, mood swings, and even psychosomatic issues. Similarly, if the planet Mars is weak, poorly placed, or hemmed between malefic planets, it might indicate poor digestion, sluggish metabolism, low energy, or a weakened immune response. But Jyotish doesn't just tell us what is out of balance, it also tells us when we should act. Timing is a critical factor in any healing journey. And this is where Jyotish really truly shines. Through planetary dashas, both major and minor periods, as well as the transits which we mentioned before, we can identify the most supportive windows for healing interventions. When is the right time for panchkarma or to detox the body? When is the body strong enough for a surgery? When might fertility treatments have the best chance of success? Jyotish helps us to synchronize our healing efforts with the body's energetic rhythms so that we are not working against resistance but flowing with cooperation. For people dealing with chronic or long-term conditions, this can be life-changing. There's also a deeply prescriptive side of Jyotish that complements Ayurvedic medicine. By examining where planetary energies are blocked, afflicted, or overactivated, we can recommend personalized remedies to help restore the subtle balance. These include mantras to harmonize planetary vibrations, yantras to stabilize our consciousness, gemstones to support planetary strength, and charitable acts or rituals to help us to release the karmic burdens that we've carried. These aren't religious practices. They are energetic tools. Just as we give herbs to support the organ or to cleanse the dosha, Jyotish gives us vibrational medicine to restore the subtle body, mind, and energetic field. When done properly, these remedies are not only effective, they are transformative. And finally, perhaps the greatest healing of Jyotish is that it helps us to understand the root cause of our suffering. Sometimes what appears to be a physical problem has emotional or karmic roots. Sometimes what's happening in the body is a message from the soul. Jyotish helps us to uncover those layers. It brings compassion into the healing process by reminding us that pain often comes with a deeper purpose. It allows the practitioner to support the person, not just the symptom, with precision, empathy, and deep insight. As this beautiful slide says, Jyotish reveals the deeper imbalances behind physical symptoms. So what this means is that it bridges the gap between the seen and the unseen, guiding both the practitioner and the patient towards a more complete and spiritual, intelligent path to healing. So let's begin this next section by understanding the heart of Jyotish practice, the Janma Kundali, or what we call the Vedic birth chart. At first glance, it might look like a box full with strange symbols and numbers, but in truth, it is something far more sacred. A Janma Kundali is a celestial snapshot of the sky at the very moment and place of your birth. It freezes in time the exact alignment of the stars, the planets, and the zodiac signs, almost like a divine photograph taken the moment your soul entered this earthly plane. In essence, it's your karmic fingerprint. It's completely unique, deeply personal, and filled with so much symbolic meaning. The chart is structured using three key components: the grahas, which we call the planets. These represent different energies and aspects of our consciousness. The rashis, or the zodiac signs, which describe the flavor or the temperament through which these energies are going to be expressed. And the bhavas, or houses, which tell us where in life these energies will manifest. Together, these three components create a symbolic language that helps us to understand our soul's past, present, and future. But here's the key. Jyotish doesn't predict in a way that we often imagine. A Janma Kundali is not a fixed destiny or a rigid sentence. It is not saying this will happen to you. Rather, it is reflective. It shows us the karmic forces at play, the lessons our soul has chosen, and the potential path that we have for growth and transformation. Think of your chart not as a static label, but as a living guidebook. It holds the blueprint of who you are becoming, not just who you are right now. If the chart says you have a tendency towards anger, that's not a punishment. It's a lesson that your soul has chosen to work through in this life. If it shows potential in spiritual work or healing, that's not a promise, it's an invitation. The planets are not controlling you, they are mirroring you. They reflect the vibrations you carried into this life from your past karma and show the direction your soul is seeking to evolve. That's why I love the last line on this slide. Your chart is not who you are, it's the path to who you can become. That is the essence of Jyotish. It's not meant to trap you. It is meant to awaken you. When you look at your chart with reverence and curiosity, you begin to see yourself through the eyes of your soul, not just your ego. You begin to understand that your wounds are meant to be healed, your strengths have purpose, and your timing has intelligence. The Janma Kundali becomes more than a chart. It becomes a spiritual tool that guides you back to home, which is to yourself. Now that we understand what a Janma Kundali is, the next natural question is, how is this chart created? And what makes this birth chart unique from anyone else's? In Jyotish, your chart is calculated using 3 inputs, very key inputs, okay? This has to be very specific. Your date of birth, the exact time you were born, and the geographical place you were born in. These 3 details may seem very simple, but together they unlock the precise map of the heavens at the moment your soul decided to take its first breath on earth. Now let's break this down a bit. The date tells us which planets were in which signs at the time of your birth. For example, was the moon in Gemini or in Cancer? Was Saturn in Aquarius or Pisces? Every planet moves at its own speed, and their positions change across the sky as the days go by. The place of birth is just as important because planetary positions must be calculated based on your location on the Earth's grid. Someone born in India at 6 a.m. will have a completely different chart from someone born in the US at the same time because of how the sky appears from each location. But the most sensitive and personal piece that is absolutely crucial in Jyotish is the exact time of birth, because this determines your ascendant or your lagna, the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the very moment that you were born. It is very important that you have the exact time of birth, whether you are reading for yourself or for a client. In Jyotish, the lagna is sacred. It marks the first house of your chart and determines how all 12 houses of your birth chart are laid out. And because the lagna changes approximately every 2 hours, even a 10 or 15-minute difference in time can completely change the chart, and it can completely throw it off. That's why knowing the exact birth time is so important in Vedic astrology. The lagna is your cosmic anchor. It is the soul's starting point in this incarnation. Think of the lagna as a doorway your soul has chosen to enter through. It colors how you see the world, how you react to your environment, and how others perceive you. It influences your physical body, your energy levels, and your general outlook on life. Even more, the planet that rules your lagna becomes your lagnesh, your personal guide or your chart ruler. This planet plays a critical role in shaping your personality, your path forward, and your progress. So when reading a chart, the lagna is always the first thing that we identify. It's like setting the compass before starting a journey. Without it, the chart has no orientation and its deeper meaning remain hidden. So yes, the planets matter, the signs matter, but if you don't understand the absolute starting point, you'll miss the whole picture. The lagna is the starting point. It's where the chart becomes alive. It's where the soul begins its current journey, and everything else, every planet, every house, every prediction will be read through the lens of the ascendant. That's why in Jyotish we treat the Lagna with such reverence. It is the soul's first footprint in this life. When you first look at a Vedic birth chart, one of the first things you'll probably notice is the format. This can be a little confusing at first. There are two main chart styles used in Jyotish, the North Indian and the South Indian style. Both contain the exact same information, the same planets, the same signs, and the same houses. But the way in which that information is displayed visually is a little different. Think of them as two dialects of the same language. Just as you might say hello in English and namaste in Sanskrit, they point to the same energy, but are expressed in different visual forms. Let's start with the North Indian style. This format is often shaped like a diamond or pyramid. In this chart, the houses are fixed, which means that the first house is always located in the top center triangle, and the other houses move around in a counterclockwise direction from there. The signs, or the rashis as we call them, are the ones that rotate depending on your lagna. So for example, if your lagna is Virgo, then Virgo, represented by the number 6 because it is number 6 in the zodiac number, it will be placed in the first house, and the signs which follow will move in a counterclockwise direction through the other houses. This format tends to emphasize the life domains, the bhavas, which is why many North Indian practitioners are particularly focused on house-based interpretation. Now let's look at the South Indian style. This is my favorite. I typically use this because it is a lot easier. It is a square-shaped chart made up of 12 equal boxes. Here, the signs or the rashis are fixed, meaning Aries is always at the top left corner, and the signs proceed clockwise around the chart. What rotates here are the houses, depending on where your lagna falls. So if your ascendant is Libra, that house will be marked as the sign of Libra, and the houses will be counted clockwise from there. Okay, this format is more aligned with the nakshatra-based and sign-based systems, and is traditionally used by more South Indian states of India. Many people find this format visually cleaner and easier to follow once they get used to it. It's important to note that neither style is superior. They are simply different visual languages of the same spiritual path. Choose the style that feels more intuitive to you, and don't worry, you can switch between them once you become familiar with both. This slide says that the chart style is like a language. The meaning stays the same. Over time and with practice, you'll be able to read both. What you gain from it is the most important. You will gain insight and awareness. Whether it's a diamond or a square, the stars are saying the same thing. What's the most important thing is learning how to orient yourself within either format. Always start by locating the lagna or ascendant. That is your anchor point. In the North Indian style chart, it's usually marked clearly at the top of the central triangle. In the South Indian chart, it is often labeled or shaded for clarity. Once you find that, the rest of the chart unfolds naturally. The signs, the houses, the planetary placements all begin to speak their own symbolic language. So don't be intimidated by the format. With practice, it becomes second nature. Now that you've been introduced to the basic chart formats, let's walk through how to actually read the birth chart. Because at first glance, it can feel like trying to decode a foreign language. But once you know what to look for and where, the entire chart begins to reveal its significance and its structure and its meaning. Think of it as a coded map. It's already filled with wisdom. You just need to know how to unlock it. The first and most important step, as I mentioned before, is to find the ascendant, which is known as the lagna. This is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the exact moment you were born, and it marks the beginning of the first house. In a North Indian chart, it is often shown at the top central triangle, and it may be labeled as ASC or lagna. That means ascendant. In the South Indian chart, which has fixed signs, the lagna is usually marked with a diagonal line, or it's highlighted in some way to show that this sign is acting as the first house. It also has the words ASC typically. Everything in the chart is organized based on this starting point, so we always begin here. Once you've located the Lagna, the next step is to move through the houses. In the North Indian chart, you read the houses counterclockwise, starting from the ascendant. Each triangle or box you move represents the next house, second, third, and so on and so forth, right up until you move to the 12th house. In the South Indian chart, the signs are fixed in place, so the houses rotate clockwise, starting from whichever box has been marked as the ascendant. Again, whether you are reading this clockwise or counterclockwise depends entirely on the chart format, but the principle remains the same. You are following the journey of the soul through 12 different areas of life. Next, you will look at the symbols or abbreviations inside each box or segment. These represent the grahas or the planets. For example, SU might represent the sun. MO would represent the moon. MA would represent Mars, and so on and so forth. These planetary symbols tell you where the planetary energies are located in your chart, both in terms of sign and house. The placement of these grahas is what gives us the understanding of the chart and its personality, as well as its karmic story. Every placement has meaning, and each one offers insight into different parts of your life's journey. Finally, there's a very important detail. The number written inside each box is not the house number. It is the Rashi or the zodiac sign. This is referring to the North Indian style chart, okay? The zodiac signs are always numbered 1 through 12, beginning with Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so on and so forth up until Pisces. So when you see the number 8, for example, that means the sign of Scorpio is occupying that house, not that it's the 8th house, okay? This is very key in distinguishing the different styles of the charts in Jyotish. Remember that the house numbers are based on the Lagna, but the numbers inside the boxes refer to the zodiac signs. So in summary, start with the Lagna, move through the houses, read the planetary placements, and decode the signs using the numbers. Once you get the hang of this, the chart will feel less like a mysterious diagram and more like a living map of your karmic path. It may feel overwhelming at first, but with practice, you'll begin to read the chart like a sacred script, one that was written just for you. Now that we understand how to begin reading the chart, starting with the Lagna and identifying the houses and signs, let's return briefly to the two visual styles of representing the Vedic birth chart, the North and South Indian style formats. We touched on their structural differences, but in this slide, we are focused specifically on how to navigate each one when you are actively trying to read the chart and interpret the chart. Let's begin with the North Indian style chart, which many beginners encounter first. It has this diamond or kite-like shape, okay? Sometimes it looks like a pyramid as well. And what makes it unique is that the houses are fixed in place. That means the first house is always in the same location, typically the top center diamond, and the remaining houses follow in a counterclockwise direction. However, the signs or the rashis change based on the time and place of your birth. So for example, if your Lagna is Leo, then the box marked in the first house will contain the number 5, which stands for Leo. And the remaining signs, which follow subsequently, Virgo in the second house, Libra in the third house, and so forth. This format helps you to track the movement of the signs around the fixed houses. And this makes it especially intuitive if you are focusing on house-based predictions and interpretations. Now let's talk about the South Indian style, which is more common in the South states of India, but it's also very commonly used everywhere else. Okay, it's traditionally used in the Nadi system as well of astrology and the nakshatra-based systems, but that is a different topic. This chart looks like a square grid made of 12 equally sized boxes arranged in a clockwise spiral. Here, the signs are fixed in the same place for everyone. Aries is always in the top left box, followed by Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so forth and so on, rotating in a clockwise direction. In this format, the houses are what moves. So depending on your Lagna, the box marked as the first house will change, and the rest of the houses will be marked and move and count forward from there in a clockwise direction. So if your ascendant is Scorpio, that sign's box becomes your first house, and Sagittarius becomes your second house, and so on. This format emphasizes sign-based relationships and planetary dignity more easily because the signs are always in the same spot. Now, here's the key insight. Once you identify the Lagna, everything else becomes easier, no matter which chart format you are using. The one piece that unlocks the entire structure of the chart is the Lagna. Think of it as aligning the compass before you start your journey. Whether you are reading counterclockwise or clockwise, fixed houses or fixed signs, everything begins with the ascendant. That's your entry point. So train your eye to find the Lagna. That is marked with the abbreviation ASC, or it might be marked visually or highlighted, shaded, or labeled. Here's a little map that I like to give beginners. Start with one chart format in the beginning, the one that you're most comfortable with. Choose the one that feels intuitive and easiest for your brain to process visually. Once you get fluent in the reading style, switching to the other becomes easier. Remember, both charts are saying the same thing, just in a different grammar. It's like using a second language. Once you know the meaning, you can translate between formats easily. The most important thing is to get comfortable reading the structure of your own chart, because when you do, the rest of Jyotish opens up to you with absolute clarity. At this point, you've seen how the birth chart is structured using houses and how to identify the ascendant. Now we are going to focus on the most important details which help you to read the planetary placements accurately, and that's understanding the numbers inside the chart boxes. These numbers are not house numbers, they are Rashi numbers or zodiac signs, and they form the backbone of the chart interpretation in Jyotish. The zodiac in the Vedic astrology is made up of 12 signs, and each sign is numbered from 1 to 12. These numbers always follow a fixed order, starting with 1 for Aries, 2 for Taurus, and going on right up until 12 for Pisces. So here is your quick reference. 1 is always going to be Aries, 2 is Taurus, 3 is Gemini, 4 is Cancer, 5 is Leo, 6 is Virgo, 7 is Libra, 8 is Scorpio, 9 is Sagittarius, 10 is Capricorn, 11 is Aquarius, and 12 is Pisces. When you see a box or triangle in the chart with the number 1, that means it's Aries occupying that house. If it says 7, it means that it's Libra. These numbers tell you the Rashis that govern the house. And this is absolutely crucial because the planets behave differently depending on which sign they are in. For example, Mars in Aries is bold and active, while Mars in Cancer is more emotional and reactive. So just by knowing what sign is in that house, you already have valuable insight into how the energy in that house will express. In addition to the numbers, you will notice the abbreviations of or symbols in the boxes. The symbols are more Greek in nature. So I'm not going to focus on that in this course. I will make it easy for you. So the symbols represent the grahas, the abbreviations, represent the grahas or the planets. For example, let's talk about Sun, which is typically represented by SU. MO is the moon, MA is Mars, ME is Mercury, JU is Jupiter, VE is Venus, SA is Saturn, RA is Rahu, and KE is Ketu. Rahu and Ketu are the nodes of the moon. They are considered shadow planets, but they are considered planets nevertheless. So for example, if you see the box with number 1 and the letters MO, that tells you that moon is in Aries. If the same box also happens to be your Lagna or your ascendant, that means that you're an Aries ascendant with moon in the first house. A very specific energetic setup, and it says a lot about your personality and your emotional temperament. Once you learn to combine these numbers and symbols, the chart starts to speak to you. You are no longer just looking at a diagram, you're looking at a coded story about your karma, your mind, your health, and your absolute soul's direction. So keep practicing. Identify the houses, the numbers, the signs. Identify the planetary symbols that you know which graha is placed where. And from there, you'll begin to see patterns and meanings that unlock the deeper wisdom of your chart. So now that we've explored the chart structure and how to decode the Rashi numbers and the planetary symbols, let's return to one of the most essential and powerful concepts in Jyotish, the Lagna or the ascendant. This is not just one detail among many. It's the most personal and defining factor in your entire birth chart. The Lagna is the sign that was rising in the east at the moment you were born. And it marks the beginning of your first house. Think of it as your cosmic front door, the gateway through which your soul entered this world in this particular incarnation. The word Lagna in Sanskrit means to unite or to merge, which beautifully reflects the moment when your individual consciousness merged into this physical reality, your birth. Because the earth is constantly rotating, the ascendant changes every 2 hours, which is why your exact birth date is so crucial in Jyotish. A slight change in time can shift your Lagna, and that shift can completely alter the arrangement of the houses, the planetary roles, and the karmic patterns in your chart. That's how sensitive and precise the system is. So what does the Lagna represent? On a most basic level, it governs your physical body, your health, and your appearance. It also shapes your personality traits, the way you process life, your energy levels, and how you intuitively respond to the world around you. It is your external identity. But it's not just in a social sense, it's how your soul chooses to present itself in this lifetime. If your Lagna is Aries, you may move through the world with boldness and directness. If it's Cancer, your approach may be nurturing and intuitive. The Lagna colors every interaction you have. It's like the lens through which your soul looks through. But there's an even deeper reason your Lagna is so important. It determines how every other planet and house is interpreted. The first house begins with your Lagna, and from there, all the other houses are counted. The house with the planet, which the planet falls in, its functional role, and even whether it becomes a benefic or malefic for you, all of this depends on your ascendant. The ruling planet of your Lagna, known as your Lagnesh, becomes your chart's guiding force, your spiritual compass. So when you are reading a chart, we always begin with the Lagna because it is the filter through which the entire chart operates. You think of the Lagna as an operating system your soul is using in this life. It doesn't define your fate, but it gives you the tools, the challenges, and the style with which you will approach life and its many lessons. That's why Jyotish places such emphasis on identifying and understanding the Lagna. Once you know your ascendant, the entire chart begins to take shape with clarity and with meaning. It's the first key to unlocking your karmic journey, and that is where the reading truly begins. When we look at the Janma Kundali, what we are really seeing is a symbolic map of karma. It's not just a chart of planets and signs. No, it's your blueprint of your destiny. It's carefully designed by your soul before birth. Each placement, each alignment, each combination tells a story about where you have been, why you are here, and what your soul is striving to become. The chart captures your karmic backlog, the unresolved energy from past lives, including lessons that you didn't finish, contracts that you made with other souls, wounds that you carry, and most importantly, the blessings and strengths that you have earned. It's important to emphasize that this chart is a static map. It doesn't change after birth. But your level of consciousness, your awareness, your choices, and your spiritual maturity, that changes everything. Two people can have the same placements but live entirely different lives based on how they interact with those energies. For example, someone with Saturn in the 7th house might experience heavy relationship karma. One person may stay stuck in painful patterns, while another may rise above them through self-work and wisdom. The chart shows the potential, but it's you who brings to life what is happening through action and understanding. The houses and signs in your chart are like different rooms in the karmic mansion, and the planets and energies that live there. Each planet has its specific house, which tells you your challenges, your growth, and your power, and how it will manifest. A powerful Mars in the 10th house might make someone a bold leader, while a debilitated moon in the 4th house might bring emotional insecurity, but also teach deep inner resilience. These are not punishments, they are your soul's invitations. Jyotish allows us to read these placements with compassion, not with judgment, and not to start seeing life's hardships with pain, but more so as opportunities for inner evolution. That's why I love this line on this slide. Jyotish doesn't bind you, it helps you to break free with awareness. The chart does not imprison you in a fate, it reveals your starting point. It shows you the terrain, but you are the traveler. With awareness, you can prepare for the journey, choose better paths, and avoid unnecessary detours. Jyotish isn't about labeling who you are, it's about guiding you towards who you are becoming. It's a living tool for liberation if you use it with humility, wisdom, and courage. As we move into the next part of our journey through the birth chart, we arrive at one of the most essential elements in Jyotish, the bhavas, or houses. The Sanskrit word bhava means state, condition, or a feeling. In astrology, it refers to the 12 divisions of the sky at the moment of your birth, with each division representing a specific domain of your life. While planets tell us what energies are active, and signs describe how those energies behave, the houses tell us where in your life those energies will unfold. Think of it like this. If planets are the actors and signs are the costumes they wear, then the houses are the stages on which they perform. The house determines the context. For example, if Venus is in your second house, the energy of love, beauty, and harmony plays out in the area of wealth, speech, and family values. But if Venus is in your seventh house, that same energy plays out in the area of relationships and marriage. So even though the planet remains the same, its placement in a specific bhava completely changes the storyline. Each of the 12 bhavas corresponds to a core area of your life, from your physical body and personal identity, which is your first house, to wealth and values, your second house, communication and your courage, third house, and all the way to loss, liberation, and moksha, which is your 12th house. These houses cover a full spectrum of the human experience: mental, emotional, material, social, and spiritual. Understanding them allows us to map out where the soul has placed emphasis in this lifetime, where your karma is the most active, and where your growth will take place. It's also showing us where you are likely to encounter both challenges and blessings. So, when you read the birth chart, one of the first questions you will have to ask is, where is this planet placed? That tells us where in life the karma will unfold. For example, if you have the sun in the 10th house, your soul wants to shine in your career and your public life. If you have the moon in your 4th house, your emotional security is tied to your home and to your mother. If you have Jupiter in your 9th house, that means that wisdom and dharma are part of your karmic expansion. The house placement reveals the playing field, and each one offers different lessons and opportunities for self-realization. Once you start seeing the houses not as abstract numbers, but as living spaces for your soul's journey, the entire chart becomes more personal and alive. Now that we understand what a bhava is, let's take a broader look at the 12-house structure that forms the foundation of every birth chart. Each house or bhava governs a specific area of life, and when we string them all together in a wheel, we get a complete picture of a person's physical, emotional, material, relational, and spiritual journey. This chart is not random. These houses are arranged in a very intentional and symbolic order, starting with the self and ending with the soul's liberation. You can think of each house as a doorway into one dimension of your lived experience. Let's walk through them briefly. The first house, which is your Lagna Bhava, this is the house of self, your body, your identity. It represents how you look, how you feel, your vitality, and your personality. It's your physical form and how you project yourself into the world. The Lagna sets the tone for your entire life. The second house. This house rules wealth, speech, and family values. It tells us about your early family environment, how you like to earn money, and how you communicate. It also reveals your voice, your values, and your relationship with food and possessions. Now we move on to the third house. This is the house of siblings, courage, and your personal effort. It represents your willpower, your hands and your shoulders in medical astrology. It represents short travels and communication skills. It's where we see personal initiative and risk-taking ability. Then we move to the fourth bhava, the fourth house. This is the house of mother, home, inner peace, and your emotional foundation. It governs your childhood, real estate, comfort, and vehicles. But more deeply, it shows your emotional roots and your sense of belonging. Your fifth house. This house represents children, creativity, intelligence, and romance. It's the house of inspiration, education, and spiritual merit from your past lives. It also shows your capacity for joy and self-expression. Then we move to your sixth house. This one is more complex than the others that I have mentioned. It rules over the enemies that you will have, the debts that you will face, diseases that you may have, and your daily work commitments. It reveals how you handle stress, your attitude towards service, and your ability to overcome conflict. It also connects to your digestion and your immunity. Then we move to your seventh house. This is the house of marriage, partnerships, and one-on-one relationships. It governs how you connect with others, what you seek in a spouse, and your karmic dynamics in relationships. It's also the mirror, showing what you tend to attract from the outside world. Then we move to your eighth house, the house of transformation, death, secrets, and the occult. This is where deep karma resides, often hidden, mysterious, or emotionally intense. It rules over inheritance, sexuality, your hidden traumas, and even psychic abilities. Then we move to the ninth bhava, the ninth house. This is the house of dharma, higher learning, spirituality, and most of all, luck or bhagya. It shows your connection to your teachers, religion, philosophy, and long-distance travels. A strong ninth house can bring blessings through wisdom and virtue. Then we look at the 10th bhava, 10th house. This is the house of your career, your authority, karma, and your public image. It tells us how you appear in the world, what you are known for, and how you fulfill your karmic duties. It often shows your profession or your life's mission. Then your 11th house. This is your house of gains, desires, social networks, and your aspirations. It represents the results of your efforts, what you earn, who supports you, and how you engage with larger communities or groups. And lastly, your 12th house. This is the house of loss, moksha, or liberation, foreign travel, and hidden realms. This is the house of solitude, sleep, the subconscious mind, and spiritual retreat. It can show both isolation and transcendence. Each of these 12 bhavas offers a unique doorway into a different dimension of your human experience. Some doors open easily, others require effort. Some are filled with blessings from past lives, others are holding lessons that your soul chose to complete in this life. When you read a chart through the lens of these houses, you begin to see the architecture of your karma with stunning clarity. Everything has a place, and every placement has a purpose. Now we begin our journey through each of the 12 bhavas, starting with the personal and most foundational, the first house, also known as the Lagna bhava. This house holds your ascendant or your Lagna, and it acts as a core identity through which all the other aspects of your chart are interpreted. This is why we say that the first house is a filter for the entire chart. It's the you house. Everything else in your birth chart is colored by the sign and planets that occupy this house and the strengths of its ruling planet. The first house governs your physical body, including your appearance, your body type, your energy level, and your overall health. But it also extends beyond the physical. It represents your ego structure, your personality, your level of confidence, and your presence. This is how you instinctively move throughout the world, how others will see you at first glance, and how you initiate new experiences. For example, someone with an Aries rising or Aries Lagna will come across as assertive, bold, and quick-moving. Someone with Pisces might be more gentle, sensitive, and inward-focused. These tendencies aren't about good or bad. They are about the soul's chosen orientation in this lifetime. Just as the sun is the center of the solar system, the first house is the anchor of the chart. Its strength sets the tone for how resilient you are physically, how self-aware you are mentally, and how aligned you are spiritually. A strong first house, meaning that it has supportive planetary influence, is not afflicted and is ruled by a well-placed Lagnesh or ascendant lord, can give a person vitality, charisma, decisiveness, and natural leadership. A weaker or afflicted first house may show challenges with self confidence, physical constitution, or self image, but it can also indicate a deeper spiritual journey where a person must build identity from within rather than relying on outer validation. Ultimately, the first house is your gateway into this incarnation. It is your soul's mask, but not in a superficial way. It's the costume you chose for this particular role in this theater of life. Every experience, every interpretation of planetary energy is seen through the lens of this house. So when we begin reading the chart, we always begin here. What is the ascendant sign? What is the condition of the first house? Who is the Lagnesh and where is it placed? These are the first questions we must ask because they tell us who is taking the journey and how that journey will begin. After the first house establishes the self, we move on to another important group of houses that form the foundation of our daily life and our inner world, the second, third, and fourth bhavas. These houses are deeply personal. They shape how we relate to family, effort, security, and emotional identity. They give us the resources, both material and emotional, that we draw from throughout our lives. You can think of them as the roots of a tree. If these houses are strong and supported, a person grows up with a solid base of inner confidence and worldly function. Let's begin with the second house. This is often called the house of speech, family, and wealth. It reflects how you speak, what values you inherit, and how you relate to money. It's closely tied to the family you were born into, your ancestral line, your food habits, financial conditioning, and how you were nurtured in your early environment. It also governs your face, your mouth, your teeth, and your voice, which connects it directly to your ability to express yourself. A strong second house can give clear, graceful speech, financial security, and a healthy attachment to material life. An afflicted second house may show financial instability, family tension, or issues with speaking truthfully or effectively. Then we move to the third house, which governs over siblings, courage, communication, and our personal effort. This house tells us how you take action. Do you assert yourself boldly, or are you more cautious? It governs the arms, the shoulders, hands, and the kind of mental strength you apply when taking risks. It also rules over writing, media, marketing, and short journeys, things that require fast thinking and movement. People with a strong placement here are often skilled communicators or naturally bold. A challenged third house can indicate struggles with willpower, suppressed expression, or competitive sibling dynamics. But the beauty of this house is that it grows stronger with practice and repetition. It is the house of effort-based success. And finally, the fourth house, one of the most emotionally charged areas of the chart. It governs your mother, your home, real estate in general, vehicles in general, and most importantly, your inner peace. This is your emotional foundation, the seat of your comfort and psychological well-being. It also represents the heart chakra and how safe you feel being yourself. A strong fourth house can give a person a nurturing support in early life, a peaceful home environment, an ability to feel grounded and emotionally balanced. But when this house is afflicted, there may be inner restlessness, unresolved childhood issues, or a longing for emotional safety that feels, somewhat out of reach. Still, it's through the fourth house that we return to our heart space, to where healing and wholeness begins. Together, these three houses form the bedrock of your early life, your habits, your relationships, and your emotional security. They influence how you speak, how you assert yourself, and how you feel when you return home, both literally and metaphorically. So when you read a chart, always pay close attention to this triad. They tell you where a person draws their inner strength and how strong their foundation truly is. As we move from the personal and foundational houses into the next set, the fifth, sixth, and seventh bhavas, we begin to explore how you express yourself in the world, how you relate to others, and how you manage both with harmony and in conflict. These houses are deeply connected to relationships, not just romantic, but also karmic, social, and professional. They also reflect your ability to bring creativity, discipline, and cooperation into your life experience. You can think of this section of the chart as showing how you play, how you serve, and how you connect. Let's begin with the fifth house, a beautiful and auspicious house in Jyotish. It governs intelligence, creativity, children, romance, spiritual practices, and your past life merits. Often called the house of Purva Punya, or past life blessings. It shows us what good karma you're bringing with you, particularly in the form of talents, artistic gifts, and intuitive knowledge. It also governs your capacity for joy and inspiration. When this house is strong, it can give you a powerful intellect, emotional warmth, and a very creative magnetism. It also rules over things like mantras and spiritual recitation, connecting you to your inner wisdom. An afflicted fifth house may indicate challenges with your children, difficulty trusting your creativity, or blocks in connecting to joy. But these too are karmic lessons that are meant to awaken deeper self-expression. Next, we enter the sixth house, which often gets a bad reputation, but it's actually one of the most important houses for spiritual growth and self-mastery. It rules obstacles, enemies, debts, health problems, competition, and daily routines. This house reveals how you handle pressure, conflict, and imperfection, both in the world and within yourself. It's the house of discipline, hard work, and sacrifice. It's also the house of service. It governs over your digestion, both physically and energetically, how you process what life gives you. A strong sixth house can give you resilience, a strong immune system, and the power to overcome adversity. A challenged sixth house may bring health issues, work stress, or chronic imbalances. But these difficulties often lead to healing, humility, and strength when approached consciously. Finally, we arrive at the seventh house, which lies directly opposite the first house of self. It represents the other, your mirror. This house governs marriage, long-term relationships, contracts, and business partnerships. It shows your capacity for commitment, cooperation, and emotional balance in your relationships. It's also reflective of how you approach fairness, justice, and how you handle expectations from others. A strong seventh house can bring a stable, supportive partner and also success in collaborative ventures. An afflicted seventh house may indicate karmic challenges in relationships, delayed marriages, or difficulty in finding balance with others. But it also pushes you to grow through these experiences. Importantly, this house is not just about romantic love. It's about any one-on-one relationship where contracts, trust, and shared goals exist. Together, these three bhavas, 5, 6, and 7, show us how to relate to others in different contexts. Do we do it with joy and creativity? 5th house. With effort and endurance? 6th house. And with love and partnership? 7th house. They reflect both your gifts and your tests in connecting with others, whether through your heart, through duty, through commitment, etc. So when analyzing a chart, pay special attention to this section. It reveals how your soul has chosen to grow through expression, service, and relationship. Now we step into a very powerful section of the chart, bhavas 8, 9, and 10, which deal with some of life's most profound themes: transformation, dharma, and karma. These houses speak to your destiny, your life's turning points, and the work your soul came here to do. They are less about daily routines or personal preferences and more about the deeper, more fated aspects of your life's journey. When we examine this triad in a chart, we gain insight into both your inner evolution and your external legacy. Let's begin with the eighth house, one of the most mysterious and often misunderstood areas in Jyotish. This house governs death and rebirth, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. It rules over secrets, the occult, your sexuality, shared resources, inheritance, trauma, and sudden upheavals. The eighth house represents the things which we cannot control, those moments in life that shake us, awaken us, or completely transform us. But it's also here that this is the house of hidden power, where deep healing and intuition reside. People with a strong eighth house placement often go through significant personal transformations. They develop interest in mysticism or work in fields related to psychology, healing, and metaphysics. Though it can bring intensity or loss, it is also referred to as the opportunity house because it brings profound inner rebirth. Next, we move on to the ninth house. We arise here from the ashes of transformation and into the realm of dharma, wisdom, and spiritual expansion. This is the house of your higher beliefs, your teachers, long distance journeys, the religion you follow, the philosophies you have, and your moral values. It shows what your path is for your soul and what it's walking in this life. What wisdom are you here to study, to teach, and to live by? The ninth house is also considered the house of fortune and divine grace. It shows where support often comes through mentors, gurus, or just synchronicities. A strong ninth house often indicates someone with a deep spiritual orientation, a thirst for higher knowledge, or even a calling to guide others. It reflects not just what you believe, but how you live for your beliefs. In many ways, the ninth house tells us why you are here at a higher level. Then we come to the 10th house. This is known as the Karma Bhava, the house of your career, your status, profession, your public life, and your worldly action. It's one of the most visible houses in the chart, showing how others perceive you and what you are meant to do in society. This house reflects your karmic duties, not just what you do for money, but how you fulfill your responsibilities and make an impact in the world. A strong 10th house gives us leadership abilities, recognition, and a clear sense of mission. It also reveals pressure to succeed or to live up to family or societal expectations. But at its core, this house is not just about ambition. It's about purposeful work. It asks us, how are you contributing to the greater whole? Together, these three houses show your soul's deep intentions, the tests, the truths, and the legacy you are here to explore. The 8th house shows where transformation must happen. The 9th house reveals your guiding principles by which you live. And the 10th house shows how you manifest those values through your actions and your career. They are the houses of depth, dharma, and destiny. When you understand them, you begin to see your life is just not random. It's purposeful, layered, and full of spiritual opportunities. We now arrive at the final two houses of the chart, the 11th and 12th bhavas. These houses represent the end of the karmic cycle that began with the first house. After moving through the physical body, emotions, relationships, challenges, and dharma, we now arrive at the culmination of your desires and the release of those desires into something greater. These are the houses of worldly fulfillment and spiritual transcendence. They show us how your soul interacts with the outer world of success and the inner world of surrender. The 11th house is the house of gains, income, achievements, societal networks, and aspirations. It shows what you long for on a material and intellectual level. Not just money, but also recognition, success, and meaningful connections with others. This house is the house of your desires coming true, what you work for, and what you receive as a result. It also reveals your connection to larger communities, organizations, or causes, and how you interact with group consciousness. A strong 11th house often brings prosperity, the ability to attract support from influential people, and a deep drive to fulfill personal or social ambitions. But it also asks, why are you truly working here? What are you truly working for? If the 10th house is what you do, the 11th house is why you do it. Then we move on to the 12th house, the final house of the zodiac, a place of completion, release, and spiritual liberation. This house governs moksha, which is your spiritual freedom, isolation, ashrams, hospitals, sleep, foreign travel, the subconscious mind, and letting go. It represents both the quiet withdrawal from the world and the deep longing of the soul to dissolve all its boundaries and return back to the source. It's the house of loss, but not in a negative sense. It's about surrender. The loss of ego, attachments, or identities that no longer serve you. People with a strong 12th house placement often feel called to solitude, spiritual practice, or service in quiet or distant places. It's also the house of secrets, dreams, past life memories, and the soul's connection to other realms. Together, the 11th and 12th houses show the final stage of the soul's development, how you pursue your desires and how you eventually let them go. The 11th house is about reaching your goals, and the 12th house is about realizing that your soul is more than your goals. One is about engagement with the outer world, and the other is about transcendence. When these two are understood in balance, they reveal a person who can participate fully in life, succeed and grow, but who is also capable of stepping back, surrendering, and assessing peace that is not dependent on external outcomes. So when we complete the journey through the 12 houses, you can see how the chart tells the full story of a human experience, from birth to rebirth, from effort to grace, from desire to liberation. The beauty of Jyotish is that it gives us a way to honor every stage of that journey with wisdom, timing, and self-awareness. Now that you're familiar with the individual meanings of the 12 bhavas, it's time to deepen your understanding by looking at how the houses are grouped. In Jyotish, we often interpret houses not only individually, but in clusters that reveal larger patterns of energy and karma. These groupings, Kendra, Trikona, and Dusthana, help us to assess the chart with greater clarity, especially when it comes to prediction, strength, and remedial recommendations. Think of these groupings as architectural supports within the chart, each with its own role in holding up the structure of your life. Let's start with the Kendra bhavas, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses. These are known as the pillars of the chart, and they represent the core structures of human life. Self, which is the 1st, emotional roots, which is the 4th, relationships, which is the 7th, and career or your duty, which is your 10th. These houses form a cross shape in the chart and are considered very powerful. Planets placed in Kendras tend to express themselves strongly and visibly. A strong Kendra foundation often brings stability, support, and material success. These houses anchor you to your personal identity and societal role, and when balanced, they can give you a sense of centeredness and strength. Next, we have the Trikona bhavas, the 1st, 5th, and 9th houses. These form a triangle within the chart and are often called the Dharma Trikona, the triangle of your life purpose. Okay, these are considered the most auspicious as they represent your spiritual path, your past life merit, higher knowledge, and creative intelligence. The 1st house represents your current life path. The 5th represents creative karma and intuitive gifts. And the 9th shows dharma, gurus, and blessings. These houses are not just lucky. They show where your soul has invested effort over many lifetimes. Planets placed in these houses often bring ease, grace, and natural talents that unfold with absolute minimal resistance. They are the houses that point to what you are meant to become, to teach, and to embody in this life. And then we come to the Dusthana bhavas, the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses. These are often considered the challenging houses because they deal with pain, with loss, obstacles, and hidden karmas. But they are also the houses of growth, endurance, and eventual liberation. The sixth house shows how you manage conflict, disease, and your daily challenges. The eighth represents deep transformation, crisis, and hidden forces. The 12th is the house of endings, letting go, isolation, and moksha. These houses are not negative, but they do bring intense karmic tests. The key is that the planets placed here often require purification, effort, or deeper inner work to express their highest potential. And when they do, they lead to some of the most meaningful soul growth in the entire chart. Understanding these three groupings can help you refine your chart interpretation. For example, if someone has many planets in the Trikona houses, they may be naturally gifted and blessed in dharmic areas. If their Dusthana houses are strong, they may face deep internal challenges, but they also have potential for profound healing, wisdom, and spiritual mastery. And if the Kendras are well supported, you will often find stability and impact in key life areas. These groupings also influence how we select remedies, what to strengthen, what to soothe, and what to surrender. In this way, the house groupings give you more nuanced, holistic views of the chart. They help you move from individual details to the big picture understanding of where someone is supported, where they are tested, and where their soul has left markers of past life wisdom and future potential. We now arrive at another essential pillar of Jyotish, which is known as the Grahas. These are what we call planets. But in Vedic astrology, the word Graha holds so much more deeper meaning than just a celestial body floating in space. The Sanskrit root of the word Graha means to grasp, to seize, or to hold. So Grahas are not simply physical objects. They are energetic forces that seize or hold our field of consciousness. They grasp our karma, and in doing so, reflect the energies we are meant to integrate, transcend, or embody in this lifetime. It's important to understand that grahas in Jyotish do not control us. They are not puppeteers dictating our fate. Instead, they act as cosmic mirrors, reflecting the karmic impressions or samskaras that we carry from previous lifetimes. Each graha represents a distinct psychological, emotional, spiritual, and even physical archetype, an aspect of the universal consciousness that is active within us. When we say the moon is weak or Saturn is strong, we are talking about how that specific energy is functioning within our karmic makeup, not just in the sky. In Jyotish, we work with the 9 main grahas. Let's talk about them. The sun, known as Surya, represents soul, vitality, ego, and authority. The moon or Chandra represents mind, emotions, receptivity. Mars, which is known as Mangal, action, courage, discipline, and conflict. Mercury, which is known as Buddha, represents intellect, speech, analysis. Jupiter, which is Guru, represents wisdom, expansion, dharma, and guidance. Venus, which is known as Shukra, represents love, beauty, relationships, pleasure. Saturn, which is known as Shani, represents karma, discipline, obstacles, and endurance. And then we look at Rahu and Ketu, which are the nodes of the moon. Rahu represents obsession, illusion, material cravings, future karma. Ketu represents detachment, intuition, past life wisdom, spiritual liberation. These 9 planets are not just symbols. They are living forces that shape our mind, body, and soul, as well as our life path. They reside in specific signs and houses in our chart where they express themselves with varying strength and dignity. And their combinations, how they relate to one another, tells us stories about our karma, our tendencies, our blessings, and our struggles. So think of the grahas as inner archetypes, like characters in a divine play. They are encoded into your birth chart, each playing a unique role in your soul's evolution. The more you get to know them, not just intellectually, but experientially, the more you begin to understand yourself. Jyotish, after all, is not just about prediction, it's about awareness. And the grahas are the keys to unlock that awareness, one archetype at a time. As we begin to explore the individual grahas, it's important to understand how Jyotish categorizes them, not as good or bad, but as benefic or malefic, based on the nature of their influence. This classification helps us to understand how the planets function in general, though it's always modified by their placement, dignity, and their relationships in the chart. Let's begin with the natural benefics. These are the planets that tend to bring more gentle, nourishing, and constructive energy into the chart. They include the moon, especially when it's full or waxing, Jupiter, the great guru and teacher, Venus, which brings harmony and pleasure, and Mercury, when it is unafflicted, meaning not too close to the sun or hemmed within malefics. These benefic planets support us by encouraging growth, healing, creativity, joy, relationships, intelligence, and compassion. They soften the chart. When strong, they bring ease and flow, but even benefics can cause trouble if they are weak, combust, or placed in challenging houses. So we never take their influence for granted. They must be studied within the full context of the chart. Now let's talk about the natural malefics. These are the planets whose energy tend to be a little bit more intense, sharp, or heavy. They include the Sun, which burns and purifies through ego challenges and power dynamics, Mars, the planet of aggression, conflict, and competition, Saturn, the great karmic teacher who brings delay, limitation, and responsibility, Rahu, the north node of the moon associated with obsession, illusion, and unfulfilled cravings, and lastly, Ketu, the south node of the moon, which brings detachment, loss, and spiritual withdrawal. At first glance, it might seem like the malefics are bad, but in truth, they are essential forces of the soul's evolution. They often teach us the most profound lessons, though not always in comfortable ways. Where benefics nurture, malefics refine. They push us to grow through friction, challenge, failure, and endurance. They show us what we must master, purify, or transcend. That's why this slide says, malefics aren't bad, they refine us. It's also important to remember that the role of a planet in your chart is not fixed by its natural classification. A so-called malefic like Saturn can bring incredible wisdom, stability, and spiritual strength when well placed. And a benefic like Venus can cause problems if it's afflicted or indulgent in the wrong house. Jyotish is a science of balance, context, and karma. Every planet has a purpose, and every influence, whether gentle or tough, is part of your spiritual curriculum. So as you study each planet, ask yourself, what lesson is this graha teaching me? Is it nurturing me, or is it challenging me to evolve? Both are necessary. And when we stop labeling experiences as good or bad and instead see them as invitations for growth, we begin to understand the real wisdom of Jyotish. Now that we've introduced the grahas and understood their natural classifications as benefics or malefics, the next step is to understand how planets actually influence your life. And this comes down to a very practical formula: planet plus house equals result. In other words, a graha's energy is expressed through the house it occupies. That's where the karma unfolds. But there are a few deeper layers to this, and when we put them all together, we get a clear and precise interpretation. Let's start with the basics. First, a planet's influence depends on its inherent nature. As we learned, some planets are naturally benefic, like Jupiter and Venus, and others are naturally malefic, like Saturn or Mars. This gives us a baseline sense of how their energy operates. But that alone is not enough, because every planet can act differently based on where it's placed. That brings us to the second factor, placement, both by house and by sign. The house tells us which area of life is affected, like relationships, career, home, or health, and the sign tells us how the planet will behave. For example, Mars in the 10th house of career may bring drive and ambition, but if it's in the sign of Aries, it might express boldly and fearlessly, whereas in Cancer, it might bring frustration, insecurity, or passive aggression. The same planet in different houses brings different results because it's activating different parts of your life's path. The third factor is to consider the planet's strength, which is determined by its dignity. Is it exalted, debilitated, or in its own sign? Aspects that it is receiving from other planets, and combustion. Is it too close to the sun? A strong planet brings clarity and power to its house. A weak or afflicted one can bring confusion, difficulty, or karmic blocks. So just knowing the placement isn't enough. We also have to evaluate how well that planet is functioning in the chart. And finally, the most refined and advanced layer is the planet's functional role based on your lagna or your ascendant. In Jyotish, each planet becomes a functional benefic or malefic depending on the house it rules. For example, Saturn is generally considered malefic. But if you're a Taurus rising, Saturn becomes the ruler of your 9th and 10th houses, both auspicious houses, and becomes a functional benefic for you. So the planet's role shifts depending on your ascendant, and that is why a personalized chart reading is so important. There's no one size fits all in Jyotish. To make this practical, a planet in the 10th house will influence your career status in your public life. A planet in the 7th house will impact your relationships, marriage, and partnerships. Same planet, very different results, depending on where it's acting and how it's functioning. So when reading the chart, don't just memorize meanings. Ask yourself, what is this planet's natural and functional nature? In what house is it operating? How strong or supported is it? And what is its role for this specific lagna? This multidimensional approach gives you so much more accurate and meaningful interpretations, one that honors the complexity and individuality of each soul's chart. Now that you've seen how planets operate based on their nature, placement, strength, and function, let's zoom out and introduce a simple but powerful method for interpreting any planet in the chart. This is a 3-layer framework, and it's something you'll return to again and again throughout your journey with Jyotish. Whether you're analyzing your own chart or you're reading for someone else, this structure helps you to organize your thoughts and arrive at a clear and meaningful insight. The first layer is the graha, the planet itself. This tells us what energy is operating. Each planet carries a specific psychological and karmic function. Is it the sun, representing soul, ego, and leadership? Is it Mercury, governing intellect and communication? Is it Saturn, bringing discipline and delayed rewards? The graha is the what, the core archetype or karmic force you are working with. Next comes the rashi, or the sign. This gives you the planet's style, attitude, or emotional tone. Think of it as how the planet expresses itself. A Jupiter in Cancer may express nurturing, protective wisdom. The same Jupiter in Capricorn may express responsibility, a more conservative type of wisdom, a little bit more cautious, and the focus on structure and responsibility is really strong. The sign modifies the planet's natural qualities, enhancing them, restricting them, or reshaping them entirely. So when reading a chart, ask this very important question. How is this planet behaving based on the sign it's in? The third layer is the bhava, or the house. This is the where of the interpretation, the area of life where the planet is the most active. Is it expressing in the first house of personality, the fourth house of emotional roots, the 10th house of career? This is the field of action, the life domain where the planet's energy and therefore your karma unfolds. It tells you where the results will be seen and felt in your lived experience. So when you put these three together, graha or what, rashi or how, and bhava or where, you get a full 3-dimensional understanding of the planet's role in your life. For example, let's say you have Venus, which represents love, pleasure, beauty, in the sign of Leo, dramatic, expressive, self-confident, in the 5th house of creativity, children, romance. What does that tell you? You have a karmic emphasis on expressive love, joyful relationships, artistic creativity, and possibly teaching or working with children. You seek beauty and connection through self-expression. Same Venus, but if we moved her to Virgo in the 6th house, the story would shift completely. Now she may bring refinement in your service, challenges in love, or a critical approach to beauty and connection. So remember the formula. what, which is the graha, how, which is the rashi, and where, which is the bhava, equals meaning. This is one of the most useful tools in Jyotish. It gives you a structure that balances both logic and intuition. When in doubt, come back to this framework. It'll help you to see the soul behind the symbols. Let's begin our exploration of the individual grahas, with the most central one being first, the sun, or Surya in Sanskrit. In Jyotish, the sun represents far more than just a celestial body. It's considered the Atma Karaka, the indicator of the soul itself. It governs your sense of self, your inner light, and your connection to the divine world. Just as the sun is the gravitational center of the solar system, in Jyotish, it is the core of your identity, your purpose, your strength, and your clarity of being. The sun also represents father figures, authority, government, and leadership. It symbolizes those who guide, protect, and discipline us, both externally and internally. When we speak of the sun in a chart, we are also looking at your ego structure, not in a negative sense, but in terms of how you hold your personal dignity, your confidence, and your self-worth. A well-placed sun can give you natural leadership abilities, charisma, honor, and the capability to walk firmly on the path of dharma. It shows how brightly you are able to shine and to inspire others from where you are coming from a place of authentic power. A strong sun in the chart often results in a person who is self-assured, principled, and guided by a clear sense of purpose. These individuals tend to radiate confidence, attract recognition, and have stable connections with their sense of identity. Physically, the sun governs your heart, your bones, eyes, and your digestive fire. So when it is strong, we often see good vitality and inner resilience. On the other hand, a weak or afflicted sun, such as one that is combusting other planets, placed in its sign of debilitation, which is Libra, or heavily impacted by malefic planets, can show up with low self-esteem, difficulty with your father or authority figures, and challenges around self-expression or visibility. The person may struggle with being seen, standing their ground, or feeling worthy. It can also affect the digestive fire, leading to poor assimilation, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. So when analyzing the sun, always ask, where is your inner king? The sun is the ruler of your inner kingdom. When it's strong, you have the confidence to lead your life with clarity, integrity, and warmth. When it's dimmed or blocked, your inner light feels uncertain, and your external life reflects that. That's why this slide says the sun is your inner king. When it shines, you shine. And through awareness, mantras, and alignment with Dharma, even a weak sun can be strengthened over time. After the sun, the most important graha in Jyotish is the moon or Chandra. If the sun represents your soul, then the moon represents your mind, manas in Sanskrit. But this isn't just intellect or logic. The moon governs emotional, sensory, and intuitive mind. It rules how you feel, how you react, how you connect, and how you absorb the world around you. In fact, in Jyotish, the moon is often considered more important than the sun for assessing day-to-day life, mental health, and your relationships, because it represents the constantly shifting inner landscape we live in. The moon also represents the mother, or the primary nurturing figure in your life. It holds the imprint of your emotional memory, your early bonding experiences, and your instinctive need for comfort and security. Just as the moon reflects the light of the sun, your moon reflects how well you've internalized a sense of being. Are you feeling loved, safe, and seen? When the moon is strong in a chart, it brings qualities like calmness, empathy, receptivity, intuition, and emotional intelligence. The person is usually able to regulate their emotions, nurture others, and feel nurtured themselves. A strong moon can bring mental adaptability. You're able to go with the flow of life's ups and downs. It governs your sleep, fluids in the body, your memory, the stomach, and fertility. A stable moon helps you with good digestion, both physically and emotionally, gives you restful sleep and healthy relationships. Because your manas is balanced, you perceive the world more clearly. On the other hand, a weak or afflicted moon, such as one that is waning, one that is placed in its debilitation sign, which is a sign of Scorpio, or if it is heavily aspected by malefics, can show up as emotional sensitivity, anxiety, fearfulness, mood swings, or mental confusion. It may be hard to feel safe or grounded even when the circumstances are stable. There may also be issues related to the mother, emotional nourishment, or inner emotional maturity. A weak moon often creates a tendency to overthink, emotionally absorb others' energy, or fluctuate in feelings without clear reason. So, when reading the moon in a chart, ask yourself, what is this person's emotional foundation? Do they feel secure within themselves? How do they self soothe? The moon shows us your emotional tides, your inner needs, your ability to process life in a meaningful and nurturing way. As this slide says, the moon reflects your emotional tides and inner needs. And because the moon moves quickly, it also governs how quickly your mind shifts from one state to another. So its stability or instability affects how steady your inner life feels. In healing, strengthening the moon through self-care, nurturing environments, mantras, especially Chandra mantra, and the moon honoring rituals can bring deep emotional relief. A balanced moon leads to a peaceful heart and a clear mind, two qualities that support all aspects of life. Next, let's talk about Mars or Mangal, the planet of energy, willpower, and drive. In Jyotish, Mars represents your inner warrior. It governs how you take action, assert yourself, compete, protect what matters to you, and overcomes how you overcome obstacles. Mars is not gentle. He's fiery, sharp, and focused. But when you understand and you direct Mars properly, it becomes a force of disciplined effort and courageous transformation. Mars also rules over siblings, particularly brothers, your physical strength, your blood, muscles, and sexual energy. It shows how you handle conflict, how you respond to pressure, and how much inner fire you bring to your goals. A strong Mars gives assertiveness, confidence, initiative, and the ability to set boundaries. These are the people who don't wait for permission. They go out and make things happen. They are protectors, strategists, and trailblazers. A strong Mars in the chart also supports discipline, especially in areas like physical health, sports, self-defense, surgery, and leadership. It gives you the courage to fight for justice, speak your truth, and defend what's sacred. When guided by Dharma, Mars brings righteous anger, sharp intellect, and resilience in the face of adversity. But when Mars is weak or afflicted, say it's in Cancer, it's sign of debilitation, it's combust, or under other harsh aspects, it can manifest as rage, restlessness, impulsiveness, or passive aggression. The person may act without thinking, struggle to manage their anger, or have difficulty asserting themselves in healthy ways. Sometimes the fire goes inward, creating frustration, tension, and even autoimmune issues. Other times it spills outward in damaging ways, especially in relationships or decision making. In these cases, Mars needs grounding and redirection, not suppression. But why is challenging? So when you read Mars in a chart, ask, what does this person fight for? Where is their energy going? Is it disciplined or destructive? Are they driven by purpose or reactivity? As this slide says, Mars is your inner warrior. Fight the right battles. When balanced, Mars gives you the courage to stand up for your truth, protect others, and act with clarity and purpose. But when unchecked, it can become a fire that burns bridges instead of lighting the way. Working with Mars means learning how to honor anger without being consumed by it, and how to transform your raw power into focused, purposeful energy. Martial arts, disciplined movement, pranayama, and mantras like Om Angakarya Namaha can help refine and stabilize Mars energy. Now let's move on to Mercury or Budh in Sanskrit, the graha that represents your intellect, communication style, and your cognitive agility. Mercury is the messenger, the analyst, and the translator of your inner and outer worlds. It governs how you process information, how you express ideas, and how you connect through language, whether that's spoken, written, or even nonverbal. In Jyotish, Mercury also represents business, commerce, education, the youth, your sense of humor, and adaptability. It governs skills like negotiation, organization, marketing, and even mimicry. It's a very fast moving, dual natured planet, which means it can easily take on the qualities of the planets or signs around it. So its strength and stability often depend on its environment. When Mercury is strong and well placed, it gives a person sharp intelligence, eloquence, curiosity, and the ability to learn very quickly. These are the people who can think on their feet, articulate their ideas clearly, and thrive in dynamic environments. Mercury rules both the signs of Gemini and Virgo, and it's exalted in Virgo, meaning that in this sign it reaches its peak potential. A strong Mercury often brings success in writing, public speaking, teaching, media, trade, IT, or any fields that involves communication, numbers, or strategy. It also supports emotional detachment, which allows for objective thinking and good decision making. However, when Mercury is weak, afflicted, or combust, its quick, airy nature can turn into nervousness, mental overactivity, scattered thoughts, or miscommunication. The person may struggle with focus, find it hard to explain themselves clearly, or find themselves anxious in social situations. Mercury is especially vulnerable when it's too close to the Sun or when it's hemmed in by malefics like Mars or Saturn. This can lead to overthinking, worrying, or mental restlessness, as well as issues with the nervous system, speech, skin, or throat. So, when analyzing Mercury in a chart, ask, how does this person process life mentally? Are they clear, witty, and balanced? Or are they overwhelmed, scattered, and overly analytical? As the slide says, Mercury is your internal analyst and messenger. It's how you translate your thoughts into words, your experiences into understanding. A healthy Mercury allows you to connect dots, to solve problems, and to speak with intelligence and grace. To strengthen Mercury, practices like writing, journaling, chanting, working with hands, and even learning new languages can help. The Buddha mantra, Om Boom Buddhaya Namaha, is also beneficial for improving clarity, communication, and cognitive strength. Let's now explore one of the most benevolent and spiritually significant planets in Jyotish, Jupiter, or Guru in Sanskrit. Jupiter is known as the great teacher, the guide, the guru, and it represents higher faculties of the mind, such as wisdom, morality, purpose, and spiritual insight. It's more than just intellect. Jupiter gives us understanding, the ability to see the bigger picture, and to live in alignment with Dharma. In the birth chart, Jupiter governs spiritual teachings, religion, higher learning, wealth, children, and long-term blessings. It shows where you will receive grace in life, not just because you worked for it, but because of past life merit. Jupiter rules over both Sagittarius and Pisces, two signs connected with truth-seeking and spiritual evolution. It also signifies mentors, counselors, and benefactors, those who inspire you to grow beyond the material and into the realm of higher meaning. When Jupiter is strong in a chart, well placed, unafflicted, or in signs like Cancer, which is its exaltation, it brings optimism, wisdom, generosity, faith, and prosperity. It supports the desire to teach, to share, and to uplift others. Such individuals are often ethically grounded, warm-hearted, and deeply respectful of tradition and higher knowledge. Jupiter governs abundance in both material and spiritual forms, and it often shows in life where you open up through trust, virtue, and guidance. On the other hand, a weak or afflicted Jupiter, say in Capricorn, its debilitation sign, or under a malefic aspect, can bring confusion in belief systems, lack of faith, poor judgment, overindulgence, or spiritual bypassing. These individuals might be drawn to dogma instead of true wisdom, or chase superficial knowledge without really understanding. When Jupiter is weak, one may struggle to attract good teachers or be resistant to growth, thinking that they already know it all. So when you interpret Jupiter, ask, where is this person guided? How open are they to learning, evolving, and sharing wisdom? Do they trust life's greater intelligence, or are they skeptical and spiritually disconnected? As the slide says, Jupiter is your inner guru guiding you towards the truth. And when this guru within is strong, it blesses every area of life with a sense of meaning, purpose, and joyful expansion. To strengthen Jupiter, immerse yourself in spiritual study, prayers, acts of generosity, and time with wise mentors. The mantra Om Brim Brahaspatiye Namaha is traditionally chanted to awaken Jupiter's blessings and to align with the energies of truth, prosperity, and divine guidance. Let's now turn to Venus, or Shukra in Sanskrit, the planet of love, relationships, beauty, creativity, and pleasure. Venus represents everything that makes life feel worth living on a sensual and emotional level. It governs our desire to connect, to appreciate beauty, and to experience joy through art, romance, touch, music, and comfort. While Jupiter represents divine wisdom, Venus represents refined worldly enjoyment, not from a place of greed, but from a space of appreciation and balance. In Jyotish, Venus is also the karaka or significator of marriage, romance, and physical intimacy. It tells us about our capacity for affection, attraction, harmony, and emotional exchange. It also rules luxury, design, aesthetics, creativity, the fine arts, and wealth acquired through graceful means. When Venus is strong, people often have a natural charm, diplomacy, and a magnetic appeal. They are often artistic, refined, and able to navigate relationships with softness and tact. Venus is deeply connected to bhakti, devotional love, as well as Shakti, the divine feminine creative force. Venus also rules over the signs of Taurus and Libra. In Taurus, Venus brings sensual pleasure, appreciation for the material world, and the ability to love. In Libra, Venus emphasizes balance, fairness, and beauty in human relationships. A strong Venus can make someone charismatic, affectionate, stylish, and naturally drawn to creating and enjoying beauty in all forms, whether through relationships, art, food, design, etc. These people often bring harmony into the spaces they enter. However, when Venus is weak or afflicted, say it's in the sign of Virgo, which is its debilitation sign, if it's combusted by the sun, or if it's influenced by malefics, it may show up as emotional codependence, vanity, overindulgence, or superficiality. There may be excessive attachment to pleasure. The ability to commit to relationships is just not there, or there's confusion between love and lust. It can also bring imbalances in desire, either excessive craving or emotional detachment, depending on the context. So when reading Venus in the chart, ask the following questions. How does this person express affection? Are they seeking connection with depth, or are they chasing validation through pleasure? What is their relationship with beauty, art, and intimacy? As this slide says, Venus is your heart's desire for connection and pleasure. When Venus is in balance, it brings not only romance and enjoyment, but also grace, devotion, and the capacity to love in a way that uplifts others. To strengthen Venus, immerse yourself in art, beauty, nature, music, and loving relationships. Offer acts of kindness, dress in beauty, without attachment. And use the mantra Om Shum Shukraya Namaha to invite Venus's gentle refinement into your heart and into your life. Now we arrive at Saturn, or Shani in Sanskrit, perhaps the most feared and misunderstood planet in Jyotish. But in truth, Saturn is not here to punish you. He's here to purify you. He is the great karmic teacher, the one who ensures that nothing comes to you without effort and that everything you do has a consequence. Saturn represents time, discipline, endurance, structure, responsibility, and justice. He doesn't move quickly and he doesn't allow shortcuts. But when you work with Saturn consciously, he becomes a great sense of strength and wisdom. In the chart, Saturn rules the long game. He governs things like development over time, career, old age, long-term commitments, and maturity. He shows where you must work the hardest, face the most resistance, and develop the qualities of patience, humility, and perseverance. He is also the ruler of boundaries, rules, and societal systems. Where Saturn sits in your chart often shows where you feel restricted at first, but where you can achieve mastery through consistent effort. In many ways, Saturn is the keeper of karma. He reminds us that what we sow, we shall reap. When Saturn is strong and well placed, it brings seriousness, structure, realism, wisdom through life experience, and profound inner strength. These individuals can handle heavy responsibilities, work steadily towards long term goals, and remain grounded in difficult circumstances. They may not rise quickly, but their success is stable and well earned. Saturn is also linked to spiritual detachment, especially when influenced by higher planets like Jupiter or placed in moksha houses, which are the 4, 8, and 12th houses. But when Saturn is weak or afflicted, say it's in Aries, it's sign of debilitation, or it's under harsh aspects, it can bring fear, rigidity, insecurity, loneliness, resistance to change, or even depression. There may be a sense of being blocked or burdened by life, as though nothing ever comes easily. In such cases, a person is being asked to face their karma head on, not to escape it, but to transform through it. Weak Saturn may affect bones, joints, and nervous system, often showing up as chronic issues or postural tension from carrying the weight of the world. So when interpreting Saturn in the chart, ask the following questions. Where is this person being tested? What area of life requires the most maturity and commitment and acceptance of responsibility? Are they resisting Saturn's lessons or slowly rising into their strength? As this slide says, Saturn is the karmic teacher, strict but fair. He teaches by limitation so that we can evolve through self-discipline, self-respect, and time-earned wisdom. To strengthen Saturn, practice consistency, humility, service, minimalism, and devotion. Fasting on Saturdays, helping the elderly or poor, and chanting Om Sham Shanishcharaya Namaha are traditional ways to align with Saturn's vibration. And always remember, when you walk with Saturn, you walk the path of mastery. Now we enter the mysterious realm of the shadow planets, beginning with Rahu, the north node of the moon. Unlike the other grahas, Rahu is not a physical planet. It's a mathematical point where the orbit of the moon intersects the ecliptic. But make no mistake, in Jyotish, Rahu is one of the most powerful karmic forces in the chart. It represents desire, illusion, obsession, innovation, and worldly success, especially those things we are drawn to but we haven't yet mastered. Rahu governs foreign lands, fame, technology, unconventional thinking, and material ambition. It pulls you towards new experiences, unfamiliar cultures, or cutting-edge ideas. This planet is futuristic. It doesn't follow tradition. Instead, it urges you to break rules, cross boundaries, and explore what lies outside your comfort zone. In that sense, Rahu reveals your unfulfilled karma, the cravings from past lives that still need to be explored in this one. When Rahu is strong and well placed, it can bring incredible breakthroughs, bold charisma, status, fame, and mastery over worldly success. These individuals rise to prominence in unconventional ways through media, politics, invention, or entrepreneurship. Rahu gives certain magnetism and risk-taking spirit, which can often lead to massive success in the material world, especially in foreign or digital fields. It's the planet of illusion or Maya. But if it is harnessed consciously, that illusion can be shaped into visionary achievement. However, when Rahu is weak or afflicted, its shadow side emerges. This may look like confusion, deceit, addiction, anxiety, or delusion. The person may chase fantasies, become trapped in unhealthy obsessions, or struggle with trust and emotional balance. Rahu is like a hall of mirrors. It distorts what's real and what isn't. When not grounded, its energy can feel intoxicating, destabilizing, or self-destructive. That's why Rahu needs to be guided by wisdom and not just desire. So when interpreting Rahu in a chart, these are the important questions you have to ask. What is this person obsessively drawn to? Are they pursuing something out of soul purpose or ego craving? Are they mastering illusion or getting lost in it? As the slide says, Rahu craves what you've never experienced. It pulls you towards the unknown so that your soul can expand beyond old karmic limits. But it also demands discernment, humility, and a strong inner grounding. To balance Rahu's energy, focus on clarity, meditation, truthfulness, and self inquiry. Practices like shadow work, breath awareness, and mantras such as Om Rahave Namaha help to redirect Rahu inwardly to experience evolutionary growth rather than chaotic detour. Ultimately, Rahu's role is to take you to places you've never been, but only if you're prepared to handle the journey wisely. And now we've come to the final graha in our journey, Ketu, the south node of the moon, and the spiritual counterpart to Rahu. If Rahu is the head of the dragon, constantly hungry, reaching for new experiences, Ketu is the headless tail, representing detachment, release, and what your soul has already experienced in past lives. Together, Rahu and Ketu form the axis of karma in the birth chart. While Rahu pulls you into the future, Ketu remembers the past, the energies, talents, traumas, and spiritual impressions you've carried into this life. Ketu governs spirituality, mysticism, intuition, detachment, loss, and moksha, or liberation. It shows areas of life where you've already developed deep karmic experience, which can manifest as natural gifts, but also as indifference or disinterest, because the soul has already been there, done that. This is why Ketu placements often feel familiar, yet frustrating. They reflect what you're naturally good at, but where there's no longer much evolutionary pull. So clinging to Ketu's energy can lead to stagnation or spiritual bypassing. When Ketu is strong and balanced, it brings profound insight, intuitive wisdom, psychic sensitivity, and spiritual detachment. These individuals may have a natural connection to meditation, healing, mysticism, or other worldly knowledge. They often crave solitude and are drawn to minimalist, contemplative lifestyles. In fact, some of the most advanced spiritual seekers have strong Ketu placements guiding them towards inner liberation and not outer success. But when Ketu is weak, afflicted, or ungrounded, it can lead to confusion, escapism, emotional withdrawal, and difficulty connecting to the material world. People may feel out of place, misunderstood, or existentially lost. There can be a tendency to isolate, to avoid responsibility, or to struggle with identity, especially if Ketu aspects the moon or occupies key houses like the first or fourth house. In some charts, it can also show past life trauma or unresolved spiritual karma that needs healing. So, when analyzing Ketu in the chart, ask the following questions. Where is this person deeply experienced, but perhaps too detached? Are they bringing wisdom into the present or unconsciously avoiding life? Are they using their spiritual gifts with awareness or escaping into them? As the slide says, Ketu remembers what your soul has already mastered. The gift of Ketu is that it helps you release what no longer serves your growth and to move towards spiritual freedom, even if that means walking away from worldly success. To balance Ketu, engage in grounding practices, keep one foot in the physical world, and use your intuition in service of Dharma. Mantras like Om Ketave Namaha, breathwork, and time in silence or nature can help harmonize Ketu's subtle otherworldly vibration. Ketu teaches that sometimes the most powerful growth comes not from acquiring more, but from letting go. As we move into the next major layer of chart interpretation, we come to the Rashis, or the zodiac signs, the 12 portions of the sky that serve as the energetic backdrops for the planetary expression. The word Rashi in Sanskrit literally means portion or division. And in Jyotish, each Rashi covers 30 degrees of a 360-degree celestial belt, making up 12 familiar signs, starting with Aries or Mesha and ending with Pisces or Meena. It's important to note that Rashis are not constellations themselves. They are segments of the sidereal zodiac, which is aligned with the actual observable constellations in the sky. This is one key difference between Vedic or sidereal astrology and Western or tropical astrology. In Vedic astrology, we are working with the sky as it truly is, which makes our interpretation more accurate when it comes to timing, karma, and soul's evolution. So, what role do the Rashis actually play? If the grahas or planets are the actors and the bhavas or houses are the stages, then the Rashis are the costumes. They color, flavor, and filter how a planet behaves. A planet doesn't act the same in every sign. For example, Mars in Aries is bold, direct, and fiery. Mars in Cancer becomes more emotional, sensitive, and even defensive. The planet is the same, but its tone, temperament, and expression change completely based on the sign it's in. Each Rashi has its own set of qualities. It can be fiery, earthy, airy, or watery, movable, fixed, or dual, masculine or feminine, and ruled by a specific planet. All of these attributes help you to understand how a graha behaves and what kind of karma is likely to express itself in that given area of life. So when you are reading a chart, don't just ask yourself what planet is there. Ask in what sign is it expressing itself. As this slide beautifully summarizes, Rashis are the energetic filters through which the planets express their karma. By learning the nature of each sign, you gain powerful insight into personality patterns, life's directions, emotional tendencies, and even compatibility. The more fluently you speak the language of the Rashis, the more clearly the chart begins to speak back to you. To truly understand how Rashis influence planetary behavior, we need to look at the fundamental building blocks of each sign. Every Rashi in Vedic astrology is defined by a combination of three main qualities: its element or tattva, its modality or guna, and its ruling planet or graha. These characteristics create a kind of environment or energetic landscape through which a planet expresses itself. This is why even the same planet, like Venus, can behave very, very differently depending on the sign it inhabits. Let's begin with the element or tattva. Each Rashi belongs to one of the four elements. Fire or Agni, those are the Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius zodiac signs. They are dynamic, passionate, and initiating. Earth or Prithvi is the next element, and the zodiac signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. These are grounded, practical, and stable. Air or Vayu are the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. These are intellectual, communicative, and mobile. And lastly, we have the element of water or Jala. These are the Cancerians, the Scorpios, and the Pisces. They are emotional, intuitive, and sensitive. The element determines the emotional tone of the sign and how it interacts with the world, whether through action, sensation, thought, or feeling. A fiery sign energizes a planet. A watery sign softens and deepens it. So understanding the element gives you the first clue about how the planet will operate there. Next, we have the modality or the guna of the sign, which describes how its energy moves or expresses itself. Firstly, we have Chara guna, which means movable. These are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. They are action-oriented, initiating, and always seeking change. Sthira or fixed is the next guna, and it represents Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Stable, resistant to change, and enduring. And lastly, we have Dvishbhava, the dual signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. These are adaptable, flexible, transitional. This movement quality gives you a sense of the sign's rhythm and temperament. For example, a planet in a movable sign will act quickly and initiate new cycles. In a fixed sign, it may be more resistant to change, focused on preservation or mastery. In a dual sign, it may balance between two roles or offer flexibility and versatility. Finally, each Rashi is ruled by a particular graha, and this rulership adds another layer of influence. The ruling planet lends its themes, values, and karmic flavor to the sign. For instance, Cancer is ruled by the moon, so it carries a nurturing emotional quality. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, giving it intensity and depth. The dignity of the ruling planet also matters. If the ruler is strong in the chart, the sign can express its nature more clearly. So when you put this all together, the element, modality, and ruling planet, you get a full personality profile for each sign. And this is what shapes the behavior of any planet that happens to be placed there. As the slide says, the Rashi is the environment where a planet acts out its role. The planet brings the energy, but the sign decides the style in which that energy is expressed. For example, imagine Mars, the planet of action and courage, placed in Taurus, an earthy sign that is fixed and ruled by Venus. What happens? Mars becomes more deliberate, patient, and sensual, but also potentially more stubborn or resistant to change. Compare that with a Mars in Sagittarius, a fiery, dual sign ruled by Jupiter, and suddenly Mars becomes more philosophical, adventurous, and purpose driven. So remember, planet equals what, sign equals how, house equals where. Understanding the nature of the sign is what gives you your interpretation and its flavor as well as its psychological depth. Let's begin our exploration of the Rashis by diving into the fire signs: Aries, or Mesha, Leo, or Simha, and Sagittarius, or Dhanu. These three signs belong to the Agni Tattva, or fire element, and they share a bold, active, and forward-moving energy. Fire signs in Jyotish are dharmic signs, meaning that they are aligned with purpose, inspiration, and self-expression. Planets placed in the fire signs take on a dynamic and expressive nature. They want to act, lead, and ignite something meaningful. Let's start with Aries, or Mesha. Ruled by Mars, this is the very first sign of the zodiac, and it carries a raw initiating energy. Aries is action-oriented, courageous, independent, and pioneering. It's like a spark that ignites the fire, ready to begin new projects, take bold risks, or charge into the unknown. When a planet is in Aries, it often becomes more impulsive, brave, and direct, sometimes even aggressive or overly competitive if it's not balanced. This sign thrives on movement, challenge, and momentum. Next, we have Leo, or Simha, ruled by the Sun. Leo represents confidence, radiance, creativity, and leadership. It is regal, self-assured, and expressive, drawn to recognition, self-expression, and roles of authority. Planets placed here are often amplified in visibility. They want to shine, be seen, and bring something personal to the world stage. Leo has a natural nobility and often teaches us to lead from the heart with courage, generosity, and dignity. And then we have Sagittarius, Dhanu, ruled by Jupiter, the planet of wisdom and expansion. Sagittarius combines fire with philosophy, making it optimistic, visionary, and truth-seeking. This sign is adventurous and expansive, always striving to understand the bigger picture, whether through travel, study, or spiritual exploration. When a planet is in Sagittarius, it becomes more idealistic, principled, and goal-oriented, often motivated by a higher mission or belief system. Together, these three fire signs can bring powerful, active force into the chart. Fire is all about inspiration, direction, and dharma. People with strong emphasis on fire signs tend to be energetic, enthusiastic, and focused on personal or spiritual growth. They want to move forward, to make a difference, and to live with passion. As this slide says, when planets in the are in fire signs, they become passionate, driven, and expressive. Fire signs are initiators. They don't want to wait for life to happen. They go out and make it happen. And depending on the house and the planets involved, they can show where in life you feel the most spark, purpose, and your need for action. After exploring the passion and inspiration of the fire signs, we now move on to the earth signs: Taurus or Vrishabha, Virgo or Kanya, and Capricorn or Makara. These signs belong to Prithvi Tattva, or earth element, and they bring the energy that is solid, dependable, and grounded in the material world. Earth signs help us to build, sustain, and protect. They are connected to practicality, physical reality, and tangible outcomes. Let's begin with Taurus, or Vrishabha, ruled by Venus. Taurus is sensual, steady, loyal, and deeply connected to nature and the body. It values comfort, beauty, security, and the simple pleasures of life, like food, music, and nature. When planets are placed in Taurus, they tend to become more stable, patient, and focused on preservation. This is the sign that doesn't like to rush. It builds slowly and enjoys what it has earned. Taurus teaches us to nurture our resources and invest in what truly matters. Next is Virgo or Kanya, ruled by Mercury, which gives the sign a sharp analytical mind. Virgo is precise, detail-oriented, and devoted to service. It often brings a sense of humility and a desire to improve, whether that's a process, a project, or the self. Planets in Virgo express themselves through logic, refinement, and helpfulness. This sign excels in healthcare, teaching, organization, and research. Virgo is like the cosmic editor. It notices what needs fixing and applies intelligent effort to make things better. Then we have Capricorn or Makara, ruled by Saturn. Capricorn is perhaps the most disciplined, hardworking, and goal-oriented of all the earthy signs. It's focused on structure, achievement, and long-term success. Planets in Capricorn often operate on a restrained, serious way, but over time, they can become powerhouses of perseverance and authority. Capricorn builds legacies. It teaches us that slow, steady effort pays off and that maturity comes through facing life's responsibilities. Together, these three earth signs provide the foundation upon which ideas and inspiration can take form. They help you to manifest your goals, protect your resources, and serve with dedication. When someone has strong earth energy in their chart, they're often seen as practical, reliable, and able to create a real world stability, whether through their finances, systems, or work ethic. As the slide says, earth signs bring stability, realism, and material focus. Planets here express through structure, productivity, and values. That means that when a planet is placed in an earth sign, its energy is grounded, measured, and directed towards what's useful and sustainable. Earth signs don't waste. They conserve, refine, and invest wisely. We now turn to the air signs, Gemini or Mithuna, Libra or Tula, and Aquarius or Kumbha, which belong to the Vayu Tattva or the air element. These signs are all about the mind, movement, connection, and communication. Where earth signs ground us, air signs lift us into the realms of ideas, language, innovation, and social exchange. They represent the bridges between people, between thoughts, and between the past and the future. Let's begin with Gemini or Mithuna, ruled by Mercury. Gemini is the messenger of the zodiac, inquisitive, clever, playful, and highly verbal. It is a dual sign, meaning it can hold two ideas at once, sometimes causing indecision, but also making Gemini very flexible and versatile. When planets are placed in Gemini, they become expressive, curious, and mentally agile. This is a sign that thrives on learning, dialogue, and variety. It is where your chart wants to ask questions, gather knowledge, and communicate freely. Next, we have Libra or Tula, which is ruled by Venus. Libra is associated with balance, beauty, justice, and partnership. It seeks harmony in relationships and strives for fairness in all things. Libra has a refined aesthetic sense, a love for peace, and a diplomatic way of managing social interactions. Planets in Libra gain more cooperative, artistic, and thoughtful expression. This sign teaches us how to relate consciously, to value equality, and to make decisions not just from logic, but from grace and inner alignment. Finally, we reach Aquarius or Kumbha, the unique air sign that is co-ruled by Saturn and Rahu. Aquarius is futuristic, idealistic, humanitarian, and often a little unconventional. It's the sign of social reform, systems thinking, and innovation. Planets in Aquarius take on a more collective focus, often operating with a desire to improve the world, to connect with causes, or to serve a greater good. Aquarius gives a broad vision. It's not limited by tradition, but seeks what's new, just, and ahead of its time. Together, the air signs are mental and social by nature. They govern everything that moves through the mind and through communication, including writing, media, friendships, contracts, and communities. People with strong air signs tend to be articulate, witty, very open-minded, and good at navigating human dynamics. But because they operate through the mind, they can also become ungrounded or over-analytical if the earth element is lacking. As this slide says, air signs are mental, relational, and future-oriented. Planets in air signs gain expression through ideas and relationships. In other words, air signs activate the planet's desire to think, to share, to connect, and to influence. Whether it's intellectual debates, artistic collaborations, or visionary planning, this is where ideas take flight. We now arrive at the water signs of the zodiac: Cancer or Karka, Scorpio or Vrishika, and Pisces or Meena, which belong to the Jala Tattva or water element. These signs are deeply connected to the inner world: emotions, intuition, memory, spirituality, and subtle transformation. Where air signs connect ideas and people externally, water signs move inward, navigating the emotional and energetic undercurrents that shape a person's inner life. These signs are also moksha signs, meaning that they support emotional release and spiritual growth. Let's begin with Karka, Cancer, ruled by the moon. Cancer is nurturing, protective, and emotionally sensitive. It governs home, family, motherly energy, and a need for emotional safety. When a planet is placed in Cancer, it takes on a soft, caring, and receptive tone. Cancer energy is not aggressive, it's intuitive, gentle, and often nostalgic or rooted in memory. This sign excels in caregiving, healing, counseling, and homemaking. But it can also become overly sentimental or protective and insecure. Cancer invites us to feel deeply and to love unconditionally, but also to learn when to release. Next is Scorpio or Vrishika, which is ruled by Mars and co-ruled by Ketu. Scorpio is the most intense and mysterious of the water signs. It governs transformation, death and rebirth, secrets, emotional survival, and hidden powers. Planets in Scorpio act with depth and secrecy. There's always something going on beneath the surface. Scorpio energy is passionate, loyal, and penetrating. But it's also prone to extremes, especially when it feels threatened. This sign teaches us to face our shadows, to move through the pain and emerge more powerful on the other side. Finally, we reach Pisces or Meena, which is ruled by Jupiter and co-ruled by Ketu. Pisces is the most mystical and expansive of all the signs. It is deeply connected with dreams, imagination, compassion, and spiritual union. Planets in Pisces operate with sensitivity, idealism, and sometimes detachment from material concerns. This sign can give rise to artists, mystics, healers, and visionaries. But it can also bring escapism or confusion if it's not grounded. Pisces invites us to surrender our ego and to remember our connection to something greater. Together, the water signs form an emotional and spiritual core of our zodiac. They bring depth, vulnerability, healing, and intuition. People with strong water energy in their chart often feel things deeply, even if they don't always express it openly. They tend to be empathetic, imaginative, and drawn to emotional truths, sometimes through art, sometimes through healing, sometimes through personal crisis and rebirth. And as this slide says, water signs govern emotions, intuition, and deep transformation. Planets here act subtly, intuitively, and often inwardly. They don't shout, they whisper. They don't rush, they absorb. And when balanced, they give us rise to the most profound emotional wisdom and spiritual insight available in the chart. Now that we've covered the elements and individual personalities of the signs, let's deepen our understanding by exploring Rashi modalities, which describe how the energy moves and expresses itself through the signs. These are known in Sanskrit as Chara, Stira, and Dvishbhava. They help us to understand not just what the sign feels like, but how it behaves, how it approaches action, and how it responds to change. Think of these three modalities in a cycle. Chara, signs initiate movement. Stira, signs stabilize and hold energy. And Dvishabhava, signs adapt and transition between phases. Let's start with Chara Rashis, or movable signs. These are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. These signs are initiators. They are driven to begin things, to take action, and to move forward, sometimes restlessly. They're great at starting new projects, creating momentum, and responding quickly to life's changes. When planets are placed in Chara signs, they take on dynamic, fast-moving, forward-moving energy. This energy is often associated with ambition, leadership, and a desire to change the status quo, but it may struggle with follow through. Next, we have the Sthira Rashis or the fixed signs. These are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. These signs are all about stability, endurance, and resistance to change. They are excellent in maintaining, preserving, and protecting what has already been created. Planets in fixed signs tend to act in a steady, focused, and committed way. But they can also become rigid or stuck if there's too much attachment. Sthira signs are like the solid foundation under your feet. They give durability and strength, even if it means resisting change. Finally, we come to the Dvishbhava Rashis or the dual signs. These are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. These signs are a blend of the other two. They are flexible, versatile, and capable of seeing both sides of the situation. Dvishbhava means having two natures, and these signs are naturally transitional. They often function as bridges or translators between people, ideas, and life stages. Planets in the dual signs tend to be adaptive, intelligent, and curious, but they may also experience inner conflict or indecision if they are not grounded. As this slide says, Chara starts, Sthira sustains, and Dvishbhava adjusts. This formula helps you to quickly understand a sign and its approach to action and energy flow. When a planet is placed in one of these signs, it tells you not just what kind of energy is present, but how it behaves. Is it fast-moving or steady? Is it innovative or preserving? Is it direct or adaptable? So next time you interpret the placement, ask yourself the following questions. Is the planet initiating something? Is it preserving what already exists? Or is it adapting to what is changing? Understanding the modality of the Rashi helps to interpret momentum, consistency, and flexibility of a planet's influence. It's one more way Jyotish teaches us that not all energy is the same, even when a planet is. Another key to understanding the deeper dynamics of a birth chart is learning about Rashi rulerships. That is, which planet governs which sign. Every Rashi has a ruling graha, often referred to as its lord, and this rulership plays a crucial role in shaping how a planet behaves when it's placed in that sign. It's like knowing who owns the house that a guest is staying in. It affects the atmosphere, the comfort, and the overall influence that the planet has while it's there. Let's go through the rulerships one by one, as shown on the slide. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. In Aries, Mars expresses itself outwardly, bold, action-oriented, fiery. In Scorpio, the same Mars becomes more inward, intense, strategic, and emotionally powerful. Venus rules Taurus and Libra. In Taurus, Venus is earthy, sensual, and security-focused. In Libra, it becomes more about beauty, harmony, balance, diplomacy in relationships. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Gemini gives Mercury a playful, curious, social mind. Virgo gives it refinement, analysis, and a service-oriented intelligence. The moon rules over Cancer, its own gentle, emotional home, nurturing, protective, and family-focused. The sun rules Leo, where it shines with confidence, leadership, and charisma. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. In Sagittarius, Jupiter expresses truth, dharma, and higher knowledge. In Pisces, it becomes mystical, compassionate, and spiritually expansive. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. In Capricorn, Saturn is focused on discipline, order, and worldly achievement. In Aquarius, it's more humanitarian. It's a visionary and it's social. It's still disciplined in nature, however. These rulerships are foundational because they allow you to connect different parts of the chart back to their source. For example, if Venus is placed in Scorpio, that placement will always carry a connection back to the Venus's rulership of Taurus and Libra. So you must consider what's happening in those signs and houses too. The ruler of the sign is like the landlord. Its condition and placement affects how the other planet behaves when it's placed in that sign. As the slide says, knowing a sign's ruler connects it back to the rest of the chart. Let's say Saturn is in Cancer. That's a challenging placement, but now you must ask, where is the moon, the ruler of Cancer? Is it strong or is it weak? Is it placed in a friendly sign? The ruler's dignity, house placement, and aspects all feed into how well the sign is, and any planets that are in the sign and how they can express themselves. In Jyotish, the idea of sign rulership is essential for advanced chart synthesis. It's how we build networks of meaning, tracing threads between signs, planets, and houses. The chart becomes a living organism where each part reflects and responds to the others. To wrap up this section on Rashis, let's now pull everything together by looking at how the signs modify planetary energy. In other words, how the personality of a planet changes depending on the sign it occupies. This is where Jyotish becomes both an art and a science, because the same planet can act completely differently depending on the sign or the energetic environment in which it sits. As I've said before, planets are like actors, and signs or rashis are the costumes that they wear. The actor may be the same, but when dressed as a warrior, a monk, a diplomat, they're going to perform differently. The sign provides flavor, style, emotional tone, and behavioral tendencies. It gives the planet its mood and personality. Let's take a few examples from this slide. Mars in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars itself. So here, Mars is strong, confident, bold, and assertive. It acts quickly, it takes risks, and expresses courage naturally. This is a placement of a frontline leader, someone who's not afraid to go first or to take action. Let's take the example of Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer, however, it's in its sign of debilitation. In Cancer, a water sign which is ruled by the moon, Mars becomes more emotionally reactive, indirect, or even passive-aggressive. The person may struggle with expressing anger directly or feel torn between action and emotional safety. Mars is still action-oriented, but the water sign dampens and softens its fire. Now let's look at the moon, which governs mind, emotion, and receptivity. Moon in Taurus is considered exalted, meaning it expresses itself very well here. This placement often brings emotional stability, comfort in the physical world, a nurturing and sensual presence, and a strong connection to home and values. Moon in Scorpio, however, is debilitated. It can bring deep emotional intensity, secrecy, moodiness, and a tendency to retreat inward. It can also bring powerful emotional insight, but often through challenges and transformation. These examples show how the same planet takes on completely different natures depending on where it's placed. So when you interpret a chart, never isolate a graha from its rashi. They are a unit, and one modifies the other. As the slide says, the rashi is like the costume the planet wears. It changes how the actor behaves. That means a confident Mars in Aries may leap into battle without even thinking, while Mars in Cancer might second-guess itself or fight from a place of emotional defense. A nurturing moon in Taurus may be grounded and supportive, while moon in Scorpio may be protective and secretive, but still deeply caring in its own way. So always consider this. What planet are we talking about? What sign is it in? How does the nature of that sign modify the planet's energy? This level of subtlety allows you to read the chart like a living story, full of nuance, psychology, and karmic depth. As we enter now the final section of this masterclass, we are ready to bring everything together. You've learned about the grahas, the rashis, the bhavas, and now it's time to integrate them into a framework for better chart interpretation. The most important mindset to begin this with is to realize that your birth chart is not a sentence. It's a story. It's a karmic narrative, a sacred map that reflects the soul's intentions for this lifetime. Every symbol in the chart speaks a language. And as a student of Jyotish, you are learning to read that language, not just intellectually, but intuitively and compassionately. Imagine the birth chart like a book. The grahas are the characters, each with their own personality, agenda, and energy. The rashis are the costumes and emotional tones that these characters wear. And the bhavas are the settings, the different arenas of life where the action unfolds. Is it career, love, health, family, and so on? When we read a chart, we are putting these layers together in a cohesive narrative about someone's soul journey. what they are here to learn, how they are going to express, how they are going to heal, and what are they going to fulfill. And here's the key. We are not judging. We are not labeling people as good or bad, lucky or cursed. We are decoding energy, neutral, dynamic, and full of potential. A challenging placement is not a punishment. It's a karmic invitation for growth. A strong placement isn't a trophy. It's a responsibility to express that energy consciously. So when you begin interpreting a chart, remember that your role is not to predict events like a fortune teller. It's to help yourself or another person understand the patterns, tendencies, strengths, and challenges that are playing out and how to work with them in alignment with Dharma. As the slide says, we are decoding energy, not judging destiny. This is where Jyotish becomes a tool of liberation and not limitation. Because when you see the chart as a story, you will realize, I am not bound by this. I am learning from this. And that shift is what brings true empowerment. The very first step in reading any birth chart is to locate the Lagna or ascendant. This is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the exact moment of your birth. And in Jyotish, it is one of the most important anchors for the entire chart. Everything, literally everything in the chart is interpreted in relation to this point. It is your starting line, your cosmic GPS, and your window into the soul's experience in this lifetime. Why is the Lagna so essential? Because it determines the placement of all 12 bhavas. Once we know which sign was rising in the first house, we count the rest of the signs counterclockwise around the chart to determine which sign falls in which house. This structure defines how your karma is distributed across the various areas of life: health, wealth, family, career, relationships, and so on. Without a correct Lagna, the entire chart interpretation becomes shaky. It's like reading a map without a clear "you are here" marker. The ruling planet of the ascendant sign is called the Lagnesh, or the Lagna Lord, and it acts as a kind of governor or manager of your karma. It plays a major role in defining your core personality, your physical health, your self-expression, and your overall vitality. The condition of the Lagnesh, its strength, its dignity, its house placement, gives powerful insight into how grounded and aligned a person is with their own identity. In fact, even if a chart has many strong placements, if the Lagna and Lagnesh are weak, the person may struggle to realize their own potential. When you read a chart, always begin with the Lagna. Locate it, understand which sign it's in, identify the ruler, and assess the condition of the ruling planet. Then look at what planets are sitting in the first house, if any, and what aspects are influencing it. This one step alone will give you such a strong psychological and karmic foundation to build your interpretation on. And as the slide says, your Lagna is the cosmic GPS. Set it before reading further. So before you get into planets, dashas, or predictions, always start here. You are not just locating a point, you are grounding yourself into the perspective of the soul. Once you know where the soul is beginning its journey, you can begin to explore how it interacts with the rest of the karmic map. Once you've established the Lagna, you've determined the layout of the chart, and the next essential step is to identify where each graha is placed. This gives you the basic ingredients you'll need to begin interpreting the chart as a living story. And as the slide suggests, you are looking at three components. What house is the planet in? What sign is it in? Is it alone or is it with other planets? Let's start with the house placement. Each of the 12 houses or bhavas represents a different area of life: personality, wealth, communication, relationships, work, spirituality, and so on. So the house tells you where the planet's energy will show up. For example, if Mercury is in the third house, you'll see its effects in communication, skills, siblings, and courage. If Saturn is in the seventh house, its influence will appear in relationships, partnerships, and commitments. Next, you are going to look at the sign, or the Rashi, that the planet is in. This modifies how the planet behaves. The sign gives you the tone, the temperament, and the flavor of the energy. Is it fiery, earthy, airy, or watery? Is it expressive or introverted? Is it ruled by a friendly or enemy planet? For example, Mars in Aries behaves with boldness and initiative. Mars in Pisces might act with more imagination or emotional complexity. The planet brings the energy, and the house defines the life domain, and the sign determines the style of that expression. Lastly, you are going to assess whether the planet is alone or with others. This is called a conjunction, and it can significantly alter the interpretation. A planet in isolation behaves clearly, but when it's conjunct with one or more other grahas, the energies blend, sometimes harmoniously and sometimes chaotically. For instance, if Venus is conjunct with Saturn, the loving and aesthetic nature of Venus may become restrained, serious, or delayed. The planetary relationships in a house create a chemistry that affects how those areas of life feel and function. Also, you need to consider the type of house the planet is in. Is it a Kendra house, 1, 4, 7, or 10, the pillar of the chart? A Trikona house, 1, 5, or 9, a house of blessing and dharma? Or is it a Dustana house, 6, 8, or 12, a house of difficulty and transformation? The type of house adds depth to your understanding of the planet's role. For example, Jupiter in a Trikona house can bring great fortune. The same Jupiter in the 8th house may become more hidden, mystical, or challenged. As the slide says, the house shows the life area, the sign shows the behavior, and the planet shows the force. When you learn to read these three together, you can begin to understand not just what's happening in the chart, but how the person feels it, expresses it, and grows through it. You are not just analyzing data, you are listening to the karmic language of the soul. Now that you've located the planet, its house, sign, and any other conjunctions, the next step is to decode its behavior. In other words, we are asking, how is this planet likely to express itself in the chart? This is where we begin to evaluate the quality of the planet's influence based on its comfort, its strength, function, and relationships with other planets. The first question is this planet comfortable in the sign it's placed in? In Jyotish, planets have relationships with signs. They may be exalted, debilitated in their own sign or in a sign of a friend, an enemy, or a neutral planet. This tells you whether the planet feels supported in that environment or if it's struggling to express its true nature. A planet in its own sign, for example, Moon in Cancer or Mars in Aries, usually expresses with confidence and clarity. If it's exalted, for example, Jupiter in Cancer or Sun in Aries, it functions at its highest vibration. If it's debilitated, for example, Venus in Virgo or Moon in Scorpio, the planet's energy may be blocked, repressed, or overcompensating. And if it's in the sign of a friend, it's generally comfortable. In the sign of an enemy, the expression may be distorted or weakened. Next, you have to ask yourself, is the house it occupies favorable or challenging? A planet in a Kendra or Trikona house usually has more power to express itself in visible or dharmic ways. In Dustana houses, which are the 6th, 8th, and 12th house, its energy may be hidden, tested, or redirected inward, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes the most profound growth comes from planets placed in the challenging houses. Then you must consider the planet's natural role and its functional role for a specific lagna. Every graha has universal significations, like Venus representing love or Mercury representing intellect, but its functional role depends on what houses it rules in the particular chart. For example, Saturn may be a natural malefic, but for a Taurus lagna, it rules its 9th and 10th houses, making it a functional benefic. Knowing the planet's inherent nature and its specific role in the chart gives you a balanced view. Finally, we look at aspects. Is the planet receiving support from benefics like Jupiter or Venus? Or is it under pressure from malefic planets like Saturn or Rahu? These aspects can lift or distort the planet's energy. A planet may be well placed in theory, but troubled by harsh influences. Or it may be weak in dignity, but rescued by a strong supportive aspect. And as this slide wisely puts it, each planet paints differently depending on the tools it's given. Even a naturally strong planet can act dysfunctionally if it is in a hostile environment. And even a naturally weak planet can become an instrument of wisdom if it's supported in the right way. So when decoding a planet's behavior, don't just memorize meanings. Look at the context. Understand what tools it has. Is it in a palace or in a battlefield? Is it surrounded by friends or enemies? Speaking clearly or being drowned out? This is where your reading becomes nuanced and insightful, helping you to see not just what the karma is, but how it's likely to feel, unfold, and be worked through. Now that we've covered the steps of a chart interpretation, let's walk through a simple example to see how the graha plus the rashi plus the bhava come together in a practical reading. This example is the sun in the 10th house in Aries, a classic placement that illustrates strength, clarity, and purpose in a public and professional realm. Let's begin by looking at the planet itself, the sun. In Jyotish, the sun represents the Atma, the soul's essence. It signifies one's core identity, its ego, vitality, the father figure, and a sense of authority. The sun is also a natural karaka or indicator of the 10th house, which means that it already resonates strongly with the matters of career, responsibility, and public status. So whenever the sun is well placed, it typically brings confidence, leadership, and a desire to contribute meaningfully to society. Next, we look at the house, the 10th bhava, which rules career, public image, profession, recognition, and karmic responsibility. This house shows how a person takes action in the outer world and what kind of role or status they might hold. When a planet like the sun lands here, it tends to amplify one's visibility and places strong focus on achievement, duty, and leadership. Now, let's consider the sign, in this case, Aries, ruled by Mars. Aries is a fiery cardinal or chara sign. It's action-driven and it gives the sun a very bold, courageous, and pioneering quality here. It's also the sign of exaltation for the sun, meaning that the sun performs at its absolute best here. That tells us that the native's self-expression, confidence, and ability to take charge are especially strong. The person is likely to feel called to lead, to start initiatives, and to pursue their goals with passion and decisiveness. So when we put it all together, what do we see? We see someone with a strong career potential, natural leadership, and an authoritative presence. This placement suggests a person who is driven to shine in the public eye and who gains recognition through their work ethic, their clarity of purpose, and their self-confidence. They may be independent, entrepreneurial, or drawn to positions where they have control or influence. Because Aries is a sign of action, they are likely to thrive when they can move quickly, take initiative, and lead from the front. And as this slide summarizes, this is a dharmic leader who shines through purposeful work. It's also worth noting that this placement often brings a strong relationship with the father or male authority figures, or in some cases, the need to define one's own authority apart from parental influence. There may be challenges if the sun is afflicted, but overall, this is a placement of natural power and karmic responsibility. This example illustrates how simple it can be to start synthesizing a chart when you use the graha plus rashi plus bhava framework. Each layer adds context, and when you read them together, you're no longer memorizing, you're telling a soulful story of how the energy is expressing and evolving. Let's now walk through another example using our interpretation framework. Moon in the 7th house in Scorpio. This is a powerful placement, one that brings emotional depth and karmic lessons, especially in the realm of relationships. By combining the meanings of the graha, bhava, and rashi, we begin to uncover a rich narrative of the personal evolution. First, consider the moon. In Jyotish, the moon represents the mind or manas, emotional nature, instincts, receptivity, nurturing qualities, and comfort. It reflects how we feel, how we bond, how we respond to life emotionally. The moon is constantly changing, just like our feelings, and it plays a huge role in mental and emotional well-being. Wherever the moon is placed in a chart, it shows a person is the most emotionally sensitive to that area and what they need to feel in order to feel safe and secure. Now, let's look at the 7th house, which governs marriage, long-term partnerships, and contracts. This house represents how we relate to others on an equal footing. It's where we seek emotional and intellectual reflection through our relationships. When the moon sits here, relationships become a primary emotional focus. The person is usually quite sensitive to others' feelings and may define their own inner state by a state of their partner. There's a deep need for connection and validation through one-on-one bonds. Next, we are going to consider the sign, Scorpio, Vrishika. Scorpio is a fixed water sign ruled by Mars and co-ruled by Ketu. It is intense, emotional, private, and transformative. Scorpio is also the moon's sign of debilitation, which means that the moon struggles to feel stable and comfortable here. Emotions may be deep but turbulent, often shaped by past trauma or subconscious fears. The person may experience emotional highs and lows, especially in relationships, and may face difficulty trusting or expressing vulnerability. So when you put this all together, Moon, which is all about emotion, plus the seventh house, which is about relationships, and Scorpio, which is intense and transformative, we see someone who experiences deep emotional learning through their partnerships. Relationships are rarely light or easy for them. They are karmic, magnetic, and transformative. This person may feel emotionally dependent on times or overwhelmed by the emotional intensity of their connection. But they also have the potential to become profoundly intuitive, loyal, and emotionally wise, especially once they learn how to set healthy emotional boundaries. And as the slide beautifully puts it, a sensitive soul learning through relationship intensity. This placement often points to past life karmas around trust, attachment, betrayal, or loss in love. And in this life, the soul is seeking healing and empowerment through those very same experiences. The lesson here isn't to avoid relationships, but to transform through them, learning how to hold space for one's own emotions while also navigating the emotional needs of another person. To support someone with this placement, encourage practices that promote emotional awareness, healing, and grounded intimacy, such as journaling, somatic therapy, or working with the lunar rituals, and Scorpio mantras like Om Ketave Namaha for detachment and clarity. As you begin reading charts, one of the most important things to remember is this: don't isolate the elements. One of the most common beginner mistakes in Jyotish is to look at the planet, a sign, or a house on its own without considering the larger context of the chart. But a birth chart is not a collection of unrelated facts. It's a living, breathing system, just like organs in the body. Every part is connected and interdependent, and each piece affects how the others function. Let's say you see Venus in Pisces, where it's exalted. You might immediately assume this means love, beauty, and relationships. It's perfect. But if Venus is placed in the 8th house, a Dusthana, known for upheaval, transformation, and emotional complexity, it changes the picture a little bit. Or if Venus is combust, which means it's too close to the sun, it may lose its strength. So even an exalted Venus can express with mixed results if it's in a challenging environment. Conversely, a debilitated planet isn't always weak in effect. For instance, Moon in Scorpio is technically debilitated, but if it's receiving a strong aspect from Jupiter, or it's placed in a Trikona house like the 5th or the 9th house, it may gain functional strength. Debilitation doesn't mean doom, and exaltation doesn't guarantee ease. You must look at the total context, the aspects, conjunctions, the house type, the dignity of the ruler, and the overall chart balance. Another example, a strong Mars in the sign like Aries might still act out aggressively if it's in the 6th house, for example, where it rules over enemies or conflict. Or a sweet, well-placed Mercury in the 3rd house could become anxious or over-analytical if it's hemmed in by malefics or combust. It all depends on the interactions. So as this slide says, the chart is a whole, not pieces. Don't judge, interpret in context. Always look at the interrelationship of placements, the quality of support or challenge, and the flow of energy across the chart. A planet's condition must be understood in relation to the lagna, the dashas, and a person's overall karmic blueprint. That's how you develop not just technical skill, but wisdom and sensitivity in your interpretation. Your job as a Jyotishi isn't just to diagnose individual placements, but to see the whole soul story emerging from the chart as a unified field. When you do that, your readings become deeper, more accurate, and more healing. Now that you've learned all the individual components of a chart interpretation, let's tie everything together with a simple step-by-step process that you can use anytime you open a chart. Think of this as your beginner's roadmap, a way of structure for reading so that you don't feel overwhelmed or scattered. The process outlined here will help you to stay grounded and focused while still making room for intuition and insight to emerge. Step 1. Identify the Lagna. As we've discussed throughout this course, everything begins with the Lagna. It determines the house structure for the entire chart. Once you know the ascendant sign, count the houses from there and anchor your interpretation in that perspective. The Lagna sets the tone for how you view everything else, just like setting your location before using a GPS. Step 2. Note the grahas in each house. Next, go house by house and make a note of which planets are sitting in each bhava. This tells you where the action is, what life areas are activated. For instance, if several planets are in the 7th house, relationships are a major karmic theme. If the 6th and 12th house are very active, the soul may be working through themes of health, service, and spiritual liberation. Don't worry about the details yet. Just observe the distribution of energy across the chart. Step 3. Check the Rashi each graha occupies. Now, go one step deeper and see what sign each planet is in. This will tell you how each planet behaves. Is it in a friendly sign or an enemy sign? Is it exalted or debilitated? Is the sign fiery, watery, fixed, or dual? This gives you an emotional tone, behavioral expression, and elemental balance. You begin to see not just where the energy is acting, but how it's being expressed. Step 4. Interpret Graha plus Rashi plus Bhava. This is where the magic of synthesis begins. You combine the meanings of the planet, which represent what, the sign, which represents how, and the house, which represents where. So Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house, that's wisdom expressed through emotional nurturance, playing out in dharma, higher education, and spiritual growth. Go placement by placement and build little interpretations like that. Each one is a sentence in the soul's story. Step 5. Look for patterns or themes. Finally, zoom out. Look at the chart to identify larger patterns. Are there many planets in the Trikona houses? There may be dharmic focus. Are planets clustered in the Dustanas? Karmic clearing may be a theme. Is there a concentration in one element, like all planets in earth signs? That gives a strong energetic learning. This step is about seeing the forest, not just the trees, noticing what the chart keeps repeating. As the slide reminds us, always zoom in and then zoom out. Interpretation is a dance between detail and a big picture. You start with the specifics, lagna, planets, signs, and houses. But then you pause and you ask, what's the larger soul lesson here? What are the themes this person keeps encountering? Where is the energy moving forward? And where is it stuck? When you follow this 5-step process, you're not just reading a chart, you are learning to listen to it. And the more you practice, the more naturally these insights will flow. As we come to the end of this foundational journey through Jyotish, I want to leave you with something that is perhaps more important than any technical rule or technique. The intention behind why we study astrology. Because at its heart, Jyotish is not about judgment, it's about illumination. It's not about telling people what they are or they aren't. It's about helping souls see who they are becoming and how they can walk through life with greater awareness, purpose, and peace. Your birth chart is not something to be fixed or feared. It is not a box or a sentence. It is a map of your karmic landscape. Yes, but more importantly, it's a tool for self-understanding. It shows you where your gifts lie, where your challenges will arise, and where your growth is waiting. The point is not to label yourself as a strong Venus or a weak moon, but to use that insight to develop compassion for yourself and for others. And remember, your chart is not your limit, it's your curriculum. Whatever appears on your chart is there for a reason. Even the hard parts are divinely timed teachings, and the beauty of Jyotish is that it gives you the clarity to see why certain patterns repeat, how to evolve past them, and when to take action. With this wisdom, you can stop fighting life and instead start flowing with it. As this slide beautifully says, you don't need to fix your chart, you need to understand it with compassion and curiosity. Let your chart be your mirror, not your cage. Let it be a source of self inquiry, spiritual growth, and deep acceptance. Whether you go on to read charts for others or simply use this wisdom in your own life, remember this one truth. Jyotish is the light that helps you walk your dharma with grace, strength, and humility. So, thank you for taking this journey, whether you are brand new to astrology or deepening an existing love for it. May this knowledge be the light to your path, and may you use it to serve others with the same intention, with clarity, compassion, and reverence for the soul.